year and a half. In any event, Madam Secretary, are you ready to go?
Yes, we are.
And we have the court reporters all set. I saw her earlier.
Yes, she is. She
Okay,
is
very good. Commissioners?
accessing via Zoom.
Pardon me?
The court reporter is via Zoom today.
Okay, very good then. Commissioners, ready?
Yes.
sir.
All right, all right. Okay, let's start with the first item.
Pledge of Allegiance.
All right. That's a favorite thing that I have to do, and I say that almost every meeting. So if you could please stand, Commissioner Solis Rainey will lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, very good. Madam Secretary, next item.
Next item is public comments. This item is placed on the agenda to give the public an opportunity to comment on gaming related matters.
Okay. I don't see anybody here, so I will close that portion of the agenda and go with the next item.
Next item is the approval of the prior month NGC disposition pursuant to NRS 241.035. This item is the consideration of the approval of the Nevada Gaming Commission disposition for May 2021.
Very good. Do we have a motion for approval of the prior month's disposition? Commissioner Gunn?
I hear so moved to approve.
Very good. We have a motion made. I'll call for the vote. All in favor,
Aye.
signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you. Next item.
Next is your consent agenda for non-restricted items. Your items on non-restricted consent agenda this morning are items 6 and 7. For the record, item 4 was withdrawn at board level.
Very good. Do we have any disclosures on any of the consent items? Not seeing any. Do we have a motion for approval of the consent agenda?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for approval of the consent, non-restricted consent items number 6 and 7 as read into the record.
Thank you, Commissioner Solis Rainey. All right, call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimously carries. Thank you. Next item.
Next is your consent agenda for restricted items. Your items on restricted consent agenda this morning are items 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 12, and 13. For the record, item number 11 was withdrawn at board level. I believe we have a recusal on this item.
All right, thank you. Who would like to go first on a disclosure?
Thank you,
Commissioner
Chair, very much. I do have a disclosure for restricted item number 2. I must recuse myself from voting on that matter as my husband, David Brown, represents the applicant, but I will be voting on all of the other matters.
All right, very good. Any other disclosures? Not seeing any. All right, then we'd call for the vote. Or do we have a motion to approve that? And then we'll call for the vote.
Move for approval of restricted items 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 12, and 13 as recommended by the board.
All right, very good. We have a motion made. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Next item.
Next item is your consent agenda for new games and new devices. You have a request for final approval of a new game. That item is 3 cards submitted by AGS, and you have 2 requests for final approval of a new gaming device. Item 1 is Winner's Circle submitted by Competition Interactive LLC, and item 2 is Monaco submitted by Aristocrat Technologies Inc.
Very good. Those are 2 consent items. We'll take them in one motion. Any discussion on those items? None? Seeing none, I'd ask for a motion. Maybe we'll have a debate on this. I'm looking the wrong direction.
It's okay. I move for approval of the new game Winner's Circle and the 2 devices Monaco and, sorry, did I miss one? I can't see, I must have taken.
You're slow
that out.
playing me.
I'm sorry. I move for approval of the new game and the 2 gaming devices as read into the record by Madam Secretary and recommended by the board.
All right, very good.
I don't know
Thank
where
you, Commissioner
3
Solis
cards.
Rainey. We have a motion made. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I oppose. Unanimously carries. Thank you. All right, and we can start now with the non-restricted holdouts. Madam Secretary.
First item held out is non-restricted number 1, which are the applications of Novo Invest GmbH for a transfer of interest, and the applications of Thomas Johann Graf, Bizard Stanislaw Prisch, and Brigitte Hermione Wimmer for a finding of suitability as a member and/or managing director as noted on the agenda. The recommendation of the Gaming Control Board is for approval. The applicants are appearing via Zoom.
All right, very good. I see them. If we could get them on the screen, that would be great. And then we can note the appearances. Okay,
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the Nevada Gaming Commission, Madam Secretary.
For the records, my name is Sabine Stoppel. I'm Head of Regulatory Affairs for the Novomatic Group. Also present are the three transferees, Thomas Graf, Richard Presch, and Birgit Wimmer. Also present is the Corporate Counsel, who represents Novomatic AG in the pending investigations. His name is Michael Roecker. Also present is the court-certified interpreter, Ms. Elisabeth Frank-Grossebner. A waiver of appearance has been filed for the transferor Johann Graf, which was thankfully approved. And again, Mr. Graf very much regrets that he's not able to appear at today's meeting. We are here today to respectfully request the approval for the following items on today's agenda. A transfer of interest on the level of Novo Invest GmbH, finding of suitability as members of Novo Invest GmbH for 3 transferees, and finding of suitability as a managing director of Novo Invest GmbH for Birgit Wimmer. Just briefly about the entity and persons involved in the transfer of interest. Novo Invest GmbH, a registered holding company, is the ultimate controlling entity of the Novomatic Group. Johann Graf, the transfer of interest, is the sole beneficial owner of Novo Invest GmbH and wishes, in a first step, to assign a total of 20% of the interest in Novo Invest GmbH to 3 individuals, 10% to Thomas Graf, 5% to Richard Presch, and 5% to Birgit Wimmer. If you do not mind, the 3 transferees would like to briefly introduce themselves. And I would like to mention that Richard Presch will need translation and will be supported by Ms. Frank Grossebner, the interpreter. And after this introduction, we are all here to answer any questions you might have.
All right, very good. And thank you for listing and entering those appearances. And we welcome you to our meeting today. I had, in fact, I've seen a lot of your presentation previously. We have a lot of backup materials. I would like you to then go ahead at this point, as you laid out in the meeting today, and start with the individuals. I'd like to hear a little bit about from them, as you did in front of the board, and then we'll get into some of the questioning from the commission.
Okay, so maybe we start with Thomas Graf.
My name is Thomas Graf. I currently hold the position of CEO of GreenTube Interactive Services GmbH. That's the interactive division of the Novomatic Group. In that role, I'm responsible for all online gaming activities, which are spanning B2B distribution of games, which are being developed with the various game studios within the group. I'm responsible also for the B2C activities in regulated markets in Europe. And GreenTube also is active in the social gaming space, where it holds businesses in Europe. These are so-called social gaming apps. But we also maintain social B2B business, primarily with US casino customers. Before my role as CEO with GreenTube, I've been active in various roles with the group. Recently, I was the CTO of Novomatic, being responsible for development of hardware and software products and coordinating all the national activities on the development front. Currently, the focus is to grow the digital business within the group as more and more markets are opening up and regulating, and therefore taking the decision to fully focus on the role of CEO with GreenTube in a full-time capacity. If you have further questions, please do not hesitate to ask me. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'll reserve some questions for you at a later part of this presentation. All right, let's go with the next individual.
Good morning. First of all, my name is Birgit Hermione Wimmer. I joined the group in March 2013. My previous jobs were in the international investment banking. I lived abroad in London and in Czech Republic as well as in Austria. My first job, I started as a project manager at Novo Invest. And furthermore, I became then as a managing director of Novo Invest and Park Invest. And during the last 4 years, I took over within the group in the Swiss holding company as a chairwoman for Novo Swiss, as a chairwoman for 100% subsidiary Greifen Invest, ACE Invest, and various functions there in the Swiss holding company and their subsidiaries. I more or less, my educational background is finance and banking. And in these positions, I'm sharing with my colleague, Richard Bresch. He is the gaming and technical expert. I'm more or less tax, financing, and the other administration parts I'm covering. Yeah. If you have further questions, please do not hesitate to tell me this. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. Then let's hear from Mr. Presch.
Good morning. My name is Richard Presch. Ich bin, willst du sagen, dass
ich habe schon gesagt, du kannst jetzt anfangen.
Mein Name ist Richard Presch. Ich bin langjähriger und Mitarbeiter von Johann Graf seit Beginn eigentlich der Entstehung der Novomatic. Das ist circa seit 40 Jahren. Der Novomatic Group.
All right. We have the court reporter present, the interpreter, correct, who can translate that into English?
Yes, sir. Good morning. This is precisely my job. Good morning. For the record, my name is Richard Presch. I have worked with Johann F. Graf very closely and for a long period of time. Actually, since the very beginning, I have been working for the Novomatic Group, which means for more than 40 years.
Meine Hauptfunktionen sind erstens der Vorstand von Novomatic Gruppe AG, die operative und produzierende Firmen der Novomatic Gruppe begleitet.
My main functions are as follows. Firstly, I am a member of the executive board of Novomatic AG, which is the operating and the production company of the Novomatic Group.
Ich bin auch Geschäftsführer der Firma Novo Invest GmbH, die ist die mehrheitlich der Eigentümerin der Novomatic AG, wo ich gemeinsam mit meiner Kollegin Birgit Wimmer in der Geschäftsführung tätig bin.
Secondly, I am also a managing director of Novo Invest GmbH, which is the company that holds the majority interest in Novomatic AG. This is where I cooperate with my colleague Birgit Wimmer in the function as managing director.
Ich bin auch gemeinsam mit meiner Kollegin Birgit Wimmer in der Firma Novo Swiss als Verwaltungsrat tätig und die auch Minderheitseigentümerin der Novomatic AG ist.
And thirdly, together with my colleague Birgit Wimmer, I am also a member of the board of directors of Novo Swiss AG, which is the holder of a minority interest in Novomatic AG.
Bei der Novomatic AG bin ich verantwortlich für die Produktion, die internationale Operation, für die Research and Development, für Sales, Einkauf und Logistik.
In Novomatic AG, I am in charge of production processes, international operations, research and development, sales, procurement and logistics.
In der Novo Invest, wie ich schon erwähnt habe, bin ich für die Management und Tagesgeschäft gemeinsam mit der Frau Birgit Wimmer, meine Kollegin.
And as I mentioned, in Novo Invest GmbH, together with Birgit Wimmer, I am in charge of management and day-to-day business.
Bei der Novo Swiss AG, auch gemeinsam mit Birgit Wimmer, bin ich tätig auch in den strategischen Entscheidungen und in den gemeinsamen
Begleitung des Geschäftes. Mein Mandat hat auch eine Aufsichtsratfunktion. Das ist eine Non-Executive-Funktion.
In Novo Swiss AG, where together with Birgit Wimmer, I am a member of the board of directors. I am in charge of strategic decisions and also in charge of supporting business. And this is a mandate that also carries a supervisory function. It is also a non-executive mandate.
Vielen Dank und ich stehe auch zur Verfügung für eventuelle Fragen.
Thank you very much. And of course, I am also available should you have any questions.
All right, very good then. I'd like to first start off, and I appreciate you coming down today and participating. And I listened very closely at the board meeting, as did some of my fellow commissioners. So we won't take a whole lot of time. There will be some questions from the commissioners for each of the three individuals. I did want to I understand that you have the council president. His name is Michael Rohriger. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Is he here? Could he stand up? I'd like him. Good morning. How are you?
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning to the members of the commission and the board. Good morning, Madam Secretary. I'm very well. Thank you very much. I hope you are well too.
Very good, and I appreciate you coming down here. I had requested that you come down on the one item in particular. I know that you represent Novomatic AG and the pending investigation, the preliminary proceedings. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, I just had a one initial question for you, and some of my fellow commissioners may have some follow-up questions when they have a chance to speak. You have been, are you lead counsel in that investigation?
I'm representing and advising Novomatic AG in that proceeding.
Okay, so are you representing individually any of the officers of the company?
No, I'm only representing the company as such, but not the individuals.
Okay. And what stage of the proceedings is that at? I know that it started when the raid took place in, I believe, 2019, over 2 years ago, approximately. I think it was August 12th when the raid occurred. Have you been involved in your representation of that company in those proceedings going forward from that date?
Yes, I have been. You're right. The raid started on August 12th in 2019. I have been representing the company even before, so I could immediately step in, and I'm representing the company through the whole proceeding.
Okay. And before the raid went down, did you have any prior knowledge or information about that particular investigation that's still ongoing?
There were some hints that something was going on, because the start of this proceeding was an interview where the Austrian vice prime minister was trapped in a fake interview situation. It seemed to have only political background, but some questions arose from that interview that the public prosecutor took up. And that's why before, it not only pertained to us, it has a very large political dimension that Novomatic is not even involved in. So one could expect that something would happen. But the first, let's say, official information about allegations against the company came when we received the raid on 12th of August.
Okay, so if I understand you right, there was some preliminary indication before the raid went down that in fact everything wasn't well and that there was a problem, correct?
Yes, so the very starting point would be, I think, the 17th or 18th of May 2019, when the video of this trap situation came up. So everybody could expect that something would result from this, and one could figure out maybe some things. And there were preliminary hints, but it really started on the 12th of August.
Okay, very good. The reason I'm asking you that is because at the board meeting, and I'll have a chance to talk to Ms. Stoppel about in a few minutes, but I understood that her representations were that before the raid occurred, nobody had any idea that that was going to go down.
Yes,
I'll
I
ask her
mean,
that question. She can think about that, but we'll get to her on that in a moment. Okay, are you in communication then with the authorities currently on that investigation?
yes, I am. And I think I didn't answer one question that you had before, what stage the proceeding is in. Austrian criminal proceedings have 3 stages. The first stage is a mere investigation stage, where the public prosecutor is not a court. It's not a court proceeding. It's a public prosecutor that is examining the facts of the case and inquiring the facts to make up his mind whether there is enough evidence at all to start a criminal court proceeding. If the public prosecutor comes to the conclusion that there is not enough evidence, no criminal court proceeding would be started. He would close the case eventually, and it would be over without accusations. We are still in that first stage. I think the reason for this is that the proceeding holds a lot of allegations, where Novomatic is only involved in some of them. The majority is not related to Novomatic. It's, let's say, it has some political impact, and only parts of it that are not political pertain to Novomatic, but that's a minority part of the proceeding. And investigations have gone on for 2 years now, but still there is no evidence that you could really start the criminal court proceeding. Rather, all the interrogations that happened so far, and there were dozens of them, nobody confirmed the allegations against Novomatic. In other respects that do not relate to us, there might be something that could go to a criminal court proceeding, but in our case so far, it didn't. So we are still at the very first not court preliminary stage.
All right. Are you in constant communication with the prosecutor on this case?
Yes, of course. We are in constant contact. We are currently reviewing the file. We are requesting all new documents that come in and examining these documents. And we can file statements to the prosecutor, statements of defense, explaining things, giving background information. So to clarify the facts or help the prosecutor to clarify the facts so that eventually he would close this file for us, not for others that we are not involved in, and so that it hopefully does not go to a criminal court proceeding in our case, but still remain in the preliminary one.
Okay, now the company's licensed in many jurisdictions, correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, is any of this investigation spill into other jurisdictions where you're licensed and doing business?
Yes, of course. All the update letters in regards to this, or the notification letters in regards to this investigation, is going out to all jurisdictions in which Novomatic is licensed.
Okay. The allegations are fairly serious, and I think we'll hear a little bit more about those momentarily. But in terms of that, are you in constant communication with the council on a regular basis? You're updated since you are the head of the regulatory affairs for Novomatic AG?
Yes, of course. I am in constant contact with Michael Rohecker, and Michael Rohecker is keeping me updated should there be any new developments in relation to Novomatic AG.
Okay. In the board meeting, if I heard it correctly, you indicated that you were unaware of any of these allegations until the date of the raid. Is that accurate, or is it more in line with that there was a suspicion that there was going to be a raid go down?
Yes, there was a suspicion. We all knew that something is going on, but not in relation to Novomatic, as Michael Rohecker already stated. We really, found out when the raid was done out on the 12th of August. There we knew, at this time, we knew that Novomatic AG is a suspect in these allegations.
Okay. I know from my materials that the board was notified by virtue of the article that appeared approximately 2 days after the raid. I believe it was August 14th, 2
That is
days after
correct.
the raid occurred. Correct? Did you notify the board on that date, or did you subsequently after the raid? When did you notify the board? And I'm speaking
Yeah,
of the board. I'm speaking of the board in the state of Nevada, our investigative board. When did you give notice to the Nevada authorities that there had been a raid and a problem?
I sent the press statement to Novomatic sent out about this on the 14th of August.
Okay. And are you constantly updating the authorities in the state of Nevada on that investigation as per your communications with your counsel as to where that investigation is going? Do you constantly update the Nevada authorities on that?
Yes, of course. Once there are new developments in relation to Novomatic AG or its related persons, I receive a notification letter from Michael Rohecker, and I immediately send it out to the Nevada Gaming Board and, of course, to all other gaming jurisdictions in which Novomatic is licensed.
Okay, very good. I just want to have a couple more questions for you in your capacity as being the head of the regulatory affairs for the company. You have a compliance plan, correct?
That is correct. Yes, this compliance plan was approved by the Nevada Gaming Board on September 2018 and came into effect in January 2019.
All right, and you're familiar with your compliance plan, section 6.1, which sets forth the duties of the compliance committee, correct?
Yes, of course. Yes, compliance committee duties. Yes.
Okay, and you know in that section that I just recited that in case of a reasonable suspicion and investigation of facts of misconduct, complaints, whistleblowing hotlines, things of that nature, you are in fact under your compliance plan required to inform the executive board of that as well, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And in that regard, you have also section 6.8.3 that recites the reporting of considerable negative media coverage, that you have a duty and a requirement to report that as well, correct?
That is correct. Yeah, that is why I sent out the press statement because then when we found out that Novomatic is a suspicion, this was immediately covered by the media.
And you know in your section 6.8.5 that reporting of criminal proceedings or investigations of regulatory authorities, you have a duty there to also bring that to the attention of authorities such as a Nevada Gaming Control Board and Commission, correct?
That is correct, yes.
And you've complied with all those? Is that your statement today that you are in compliance with your own compliance committee reporting requirements?
Yes.
Okay, that's very good. That's what I was hoping for. All right.
Yeah.
Just as one last question, I want to make sure that in your capacity and the fact that the company does do business in the state of Nevada, you know, in Nevada we have a policy that requires licensees to really self-report any kind of problems. And you're aware of that kind of a policy that the commission and the board has of self-reporting, so that basically if there's a problem and a licensee or his representatives sees there's a problem, that they're compelled to in fact report that to the gaming authorities, correct?
Of course, yes. I always do proactively inform the Nevada Gaming Control Board and all the other jurisdictions in which Novomatic is licensed.
Okay, and you're familiar with our regulations and our statutory authority under NRS, Nevada Revised Statutes, that mandates that kind of reporting, correct? As in addition to the public policy and in addition to, in fact, the compliance plan that you have. And you've complied with all that, correct?
Yes, correct, yes.
All right, I'm going to conclude my questioning at this point, and I'm going to turn this back over to the commission. I appreciate your responses and getting that on the record. I think it's very important. And at this time, I'm going to ask the commissioners for any questions that they may have. Commissioner Cohen, you want to go first?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. From a perspective of the transfer of interest, I have no problem with that. I think it's, you know, that Mr. Graff is taking the proper procedures regarding, generational issues. I am very concerned by the lack of information that we have on this investigation. And this investigation is, as you stated, it can end up being nothing more than, an ex-employee, trying to rattle the cages, or it could turn into something much more serious. But nevertheless, allegations have been made that the press release was issued and the investigation is ongoing. So I have a number of questions regarding that. Let me first start. Is it Mr. Roriger? Is the independent counsel?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Did Novamatic AG conduct at any time an internal investigation regarding the allegations as set forth regarding, for example, the advantage of government officials for the influencing of gaming law, for the partial allocation of gaming licenses, or Novamatic entering into a sham contract with the intention of influencing a government official to use his office in the interest of Novamatic? Was Novamatic commissioned by a tax consultant to influence a government official for a promised advantage constituting bribery? Or Novamatic or its employees, with the approval of its owner, Professor Graf, attempt to influence any member of parliamentary committee improperly? Any of those things were subject of internal investigation?
Yes, we had internal investigations on that. We had, there are two questions involved. One is a tax question where the investigations are done by tax auditors. And in terms of the non-tax issues, there was right at the beginning, I think after August, then it started involving the supervisory board and involving the compliance committee to have an internal audit on the allegations raised.
Were those findings reduced to writing by you as independent counsel?
Sorry, I didn't understand the question.
Were those findings reduced to a written report by you or someone in your firm as independent counsel?
Haben Sie das in Ihrer Anwaltskanzlei in irgendeiner Form in einem Bericht zusammengefasst?
No,
Could I answer as well? The income tax investigation was being made with Novomatic Group and Deloitte and Touche, our tax advisor. And the findings are closed, but it's not still in a written report. It will be soon. So the result verbally was mentioned that it's not a tax, an income tax issue. It's really a gift donation, which is privately and personally motivated from Professor Graf to some of the employees.
When that report is issued, I would respectfully request that report be submitted to the Gaming Control Board.
Sure. Yeah, sure. This is one part.
Okay. Now, let's go back to these allegations. Was any employee or vendors that Novamatic does business with, was anyone disciplined, fired, suspended, or the like as a result of these allegations?
No, not to my knowledge. And I think there were not enough grounds to do so. Of course, there are internal, let's say, internal rules. If somebody is individually accused, that he must not deal with his own accusations, but there were no disciplinary measures taken.
Okay, so without mentioning names, are you aware of the individuals with Novavatic who were allegedly responsible for these improprieties?
Well, the individuals are individually accused in the proceedings. So from the file, you can see who is really, it's not accused, but it's allegations against them. So one would see what the names of the individuals are.
Now, for purposes of the review today, have any of the three individuals, Mr. Graf, Wimmer, or Presh, were any of those people during the course of your independent investigation accused of any wrongdoing?
No, I mean, they are only involved in text questions, but not in the accusations that came upon at first stage.
Now, the chairman was very thorough in his questioning regarding the status of the investigation. Are you able to give the commission any sort of guidance on what the next step is? Is there anything, is it totally in the hands of the Austrian, agency now and you're just waiting, or are you still submitting documents in response to any of the allegations?
No, we are. There are various aspects. One is we are still preparing documents for the public prosecutor, like explaining background information, so to give them arguments why they can close the file. In principle, it's in the hands of the prosecutor how they want to proceed here. And one thing has to be mentioned: it's not a legal thing. During the last weeks or even months, the focus shifted away from Novomatic to politicians, because the prosecutors thought they found evidence for wrongdoings of politicians, even the Austrian Prime Minister, who is facing allegations in the file. Those allegations have nothing to do with Novomatic. The Prime Minister is, the allegations are that he had false testimony before a parliamentary commission. This has nothing to do with the allegations against Novomatic AG, but it shifted the focus because that's for the public prosecutor and also the press a much more interesting case, which means the speed came out a little bit in the proceeding. And I think the second aspect is, although they were investigating heavily for 2 years, there is no evidence so far that would really justify an accusation and bring this to court. In the cases of Novomatic AG, in other cases not related to us might be different. So right now, the proceeding is ongoing as it did in the past, but the speed slowed down a bit, and we are bringing in new arguments and hoping that someday, when the prosecutor finds time, he would close the file in our cases.
That was very helpful. Thank you. And my last statement, I just want to clarify one thing that you stated at the beginning of your presentation. You kind of knew something was up because of a fake interview with a politician. Is that correct?
That's correct. It was a fake interview that was done about 2 years before. The producers of this fake interview, they really trapped the Vice Prime Minister of Austria in Ibiza. They tried to sell this video to somebody who could use it for political reasons, but nobody wanted to buy it. So eventually it was published, probably for political reason, to damage the Vice Prime Minister. And eventually it led to him having to step back from his function. So when this video came up, everybody knew that in this video he made some remarks or he gave his opinions that could trigger questions that one could challenge. One could say, what's the background of this? And it had a really high, eventually it blew up the Austrian government. So everybody knew this would trigger political implications, and some remarks that he made in this interview could be challenged from a criminal point of view. So that was why we thought something's going on, and certain aspects became clearer, but on 12th of August, it popped really up so that everybody knew, okay, now it's fully on the table.
Thank you very much for that. That concludes my questions on this matter.
Thank you, Commissioner Cohen. I'm going to see if any, the other commissioners have some questions. I would ask one of the commissioners, and I have to agree with them. We would like to have the person who's speaking and addressing the commission move closer to the end of the table. It's hard for us to really see visually when you're standing so far back. And if you could do that, it would really help us out and what we have to do here today. So having said that, I'm going to see if Commissioner Brown is ready to go.
Yes.
All right.
Guten Abend, wie geht's?
Guten Abend. Dankeschön, es geht gut. Und Ihnen?
Bitte sehr, bitte sehr. I know it's evening there, so thank you for making time. This is very important. We do have some questions, and thank you for answering the questions so far. I'm not sure, Mr. Roriga, if you would please stand.
Yes.
Danke. You mentioned that there were 3 stages, and I understand the first stage is the investigation. Do you have an approximate timeline of your estimate based on your discussions with the prosecutor in Austria, how long this stage will take before they reach a conclusion?
That's difficult to tell because it depends on whether their interest lies on other aspects. So, for example, if they are interested in chasing the prime minister, our case might just wait for the next steps. It could end within a couple of months, but it could also drag on for another year or 2. I mean, we have investigations sometimes that take even longer. So it's hard to predict. From my opinion, all the facts are on the table of the allegations that are made against Novomatic AG. So it's not necessary to inquire this for another year or 2. So if somebody finds the time and sits down and really makes up his mind on what's on the table, they could come to a conclusion in autumn if they do. Yeah.
Thank you. And can you tell me, has Professor Graf been questioned by way of the interrogations that you mentioned earlier yet by the Austrian officials?
No, Professor Graf was not interrogated so far.
Okay, and how many employees of Novomatic, if any, have been interrogated so far by the Austrian officials?
Yeah, hell yeah.
By the Austrian officials, interrogations of the accused did not happen so far from Novomatic AG.
And are those scheduled?
No, not yet.
Okay, and do you anticipate that they will be scheduled and that will be forthcoming?
Well, usually, I mean, they have the right to be heard, but you are not obliged to say something as an accused. So they made written statements, and they could say, I think the statement is enough. I don't want to be interrogated, and I think the facts are on the table, so it's not necessary anymore. But if you want to be heard, you have the right to do so once, and then public prosecutor could pass a decision.
And has anyone from Novomatic declined to be interviewed at this stage?
No, not finally declined, but normally in Austria, you wait until the public prosecutor has investigated all other evidence, so that you can kind of in a final discussion, discuss all this evidence and prove that the allegations are wrong. So usually such an interrogation would be, let's say, like kind of, in this case, as a final round of discussing the evidence that came up.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And you said that there's a second stage, which is the criminal court proceedings. I didn't hear what the third stage is. Maybe I missed it. If you could clarify for the record.
I didn't say it. The second stage, you're right, is the criminal court proceeding. It's an oral hearing before court. It starts from scratch. So it's not just reviewing what the prosecutor did, but the prosecutor is really preliminary. And if the prosecutor thinks this might be something, then the court comes in and starts from scratch. And the third stage is for legal remedies. So if you appeal against the court decision, then there is a third stage. It's also a court proceeding then.
Thank you. I appreciate that response. And then I know that Novomatic does quite a bit of business internationally that has 45 countries and 1,900 gaming locations. Have there ever been any fines assessed or investigations commenced against Novomatic in any of the 1,900 gaming locations?
That wouldn't all come to my knowledge.
Never, due to the compliance management system which is in place, all the Novomatic companies group-wide have to file with group compliance semi-annual reports. And so far, no, not any subsidiaries worldwide reported any criminal investigations.
And how about any fines assessed against Novomatic in any of the 1900 locations?
Okay, I mean fines, administrative fines maybe can happen, but they report it, and we have all these on file, of course, but no, not in connection with criminal activities.
And that's all been reported to the Nevada authorities here, is that correct?
No, it's not correct, no.
Okay. And then has any training internally been implemented by Novomatic to address any ethical issues if somebody sees behavior like, okay, can you tell me a little bit more for the record? What's been implemented since all of this has commenced?
There is, first of all, there is the code of conduct, which is binding for management and all employees worldwide. It is described, it is distributed among all group companies and translated into 7 languages. It contains binding guidelines and principles for ethically and legally impeccable actions and decisions by all employees of the group, and is based on laws and international standards. And then there are several binding group policies which have been issued and implemented and which cover the most important compliance topics like anti-corruption, anti-money laundering compliance, KYC requirements, and antitrust law. Also, the policies are binding for the entire management and all employees. Compliance with group policies requirements must be confirmed by group subsidiaries via semi-annual reports. Then there is the compliance plan we mentioned before, and there is a group-wide whistleblowing hotline, which makes it possible to report violations of the guidelines and principles of the code of conduct or any suspect cases in this regard. Also, there is an anti-corruption e-learning program, which has been developed and is available since 2020 and is being rolled out group-wide for access by all managers and employees. And there is a group-wide binding reporting obligation, as I said before, on a semi-annual basis.
Vielen Dank. I appreciate that as well. And you mentioned the whistleblowing hotline. Who responds to those inquiries? Can you explain to me what the intake process is and what happens to any of the whistleblowing hotlines calls that are received?
Well, it depends on the topics. If it's related to HR or something like that, then the HR manager is dealing with that. And of course, all the whistleblowing reports are coming up to the compliance committee, and there it is discussed then, and further steps then are evaluated.
And have you received any reports regarding corruption or bribery on the whistleblower hotline in the last 2 years since the investigation has commenced?
No.
Okay. And I'd like to shift just quickly to Professor Johann Graf, if I may. Can somebody explain to me, I understand he's no longer involved in the day-to-day operations. When is the last time he was involved in the day-to-day operations?
Mr. Graf never was involved in the day-to-day business. He's that's the sole shareholder of Novo Invest and the sole shareholder of Novo Swiss AG. But he's not involved in the day-to-day business, and he never was.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
You're welcome.
And then it's my, thank you. And it's my understanding that Patrick Graf, the other son, is also supposed to be receiving a 10% interest, but that's not in front of us today. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes. But I already filed the application for this share transfer as well with the Nevada Gaming Control Board.
Yeah, I believe that was filed in May. Is that correct?
Yes, that is
Okay.
correct.
Vielen Dank. I appreciate your time and guten Abend.
Bitte schön. Dankeschön.
All right. Ms. Rainey.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had a couple of follow-up questions with respect to, I guess, some of the information we've elicited today. You mentioned that, I think your counsel mentioned that you were aware that you had a reasonable suspicion, I guess, is the way I interpreted, that something was going to come of this fake interview issue when it was released in May of 2019. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. I'm a little troubled by the fact that that was known to the company in May of 2019, but it wasn't reported to the gaming authorities until after the raid and after, and it came in the context of a press release. Is there a reason that it wasn't reported prior to that, since you had a reasonable suspicion?
Yeah, because the Novomatic was not really involved, so we did not know at the time if there is something going on against Novomatic at all.
Okay, maybe I misunderstood. I thought the indication was that there was a reasonable suspicion that something was going to come of it as to Novomatic. Is
No.
that not the case?
No.
Okay, all right, then that, thank you, that helps my concerns. Obviously the concept of self-reporting is not just to copy the gaming authorities on a press release. If there's something that you know of in advance of that, and even if it's still in the process of being investigated, it's something that we would want to know prior to it being released in a press release, or prior to actually any official proceedings happening with that regard. Also, I wanted to follow up on the internal investigations. My colleague, Member Cohen, asked if a number of items were investigated internally, and I believe the indication was that there was. What was the timing of those internal investigations?
The first report it was done by group audit, and the first report was issued, I guess, in September 2019, and the second report in December 2019. And there were
what was the second?
December 2019.
Thank you. And were those reports provided to the gaming authorities?
No, because there were no findings. So no findings which would prove these allegations.
And then I had a follow-up question for counsel. I think you mentioned that there was written statements submitted by Novomatic employees. Can you maybe just explain that a little further? Are those statements that are requested by the investigating prosecutor, or is that something that you offer in response to other allegations that were raised against the company?
I mean, the public prosecutor could request for such statements, but normally he doesn't. Normally you inspect the file, you get to know about the allegations that are investigated, and if you think you have good argument, you have good evidence to prove the allegations wrong, then you sit down, produce a paper, and file the statement in written form to the prosecutor to convince him that the proceeding has to be closed, that the allegations are false. So that's
I appreciate that. I wasn't clear if it was something you offered, and I apologize for cutting off, or something they requested from you.
Normally, it's something that you file on your own without a request by the prosecutor, but sometimes he could ask for that.
Okay. And in this first phase of the three-stage process, if the investigator or prosecutor requests such written reports or information, are you obligated to provide that, or is that something that the company can decline?
No, you are not obliged to do so, because in Austria, if you are a suspect, you have the right to deny any action. You don't need to cooperate. So you are not, there is no obligation to do so. But from a tactical or point of view in our situation, as we think that the allegations are completely false, we of course are willing to answer a question that the prosecutor has, or even provide information on our own if we think it's helpful to prove the allegations as false.
Of course, and that makes sense. So in this case, there's been no request for written statements or for oral interrogations that the company has declined. Is that correct?
No, there were no. There is no request for statements or oral hearings that we declined.
And one final question that I had, and it's more out of curiosity. You indicated that if this process moves into the second stage, that the process starts anew. Does that mean that all of this information and statements and evidence that has been collected in the first phase it cannot be used? I mean, do you literally start from scratch, or is that part of the discovery file, if you will?
Well, it sort of legally has to start from scratch, because the court can only use that evidence in his verdict, in his decision, that he has heard orally in court. So, of course, everything that was produced in the preliminary stage could be used, but somebody has to use it in the oral hearing. If it's not used, you could not base the decision on something that was not heard or brought forth in the hearing.
Understood. Thank you very much. I don't have any further questions.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Solis-Rainey. I had a couple of follow-up questions, not too long in length, but for Ms. Stoppel. Ms. Stoppel, can you come up a little closer so I can see you? You're kind of hidden back in the back there. I want to give you an A seat, so to speak. In any event, if I understand this right, there are some reports that were not submitted to gaming authorities, correct?
That is correct. There were internal reports made, from group audit.
Okay, and that was always troubling to me, because I like to see a company err on the side of too much disclosure rather than err on the side of too little disclosure. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, of course. Yes.
Okay. I notice back to the compliance committee duties in 6.8.3, it specifically has in there that reporting of considerably negative media coverage according to the group policy. It covers that. And it says, basically paraphrasing, that the compliance manager shall submit a report including a brief summary and assessment of the coverage by NAG or the affected affiliate. Considerably negative media coverage occurs if the coverage or the subject matter described therein is capable of sustaining long-term damage to the NAG group. It goes on to say if could affect the risk of withdrawal of licenses. And then it gives an example. For example, any published allegation of criminally relevant conduct, and in brackets, suspicion of corruption, fraud, etc., against a member of the NAG group management represents a fact requiring reporting. Would you agree that that's a concept that's outlined in the compliance plan itself that you have?
Yes, but due to the fact that we file on a regular basis the notification letters, we always mention that there is negative media reports, or there had been negative reports. So we assume that this would suffice. So, but if every single negative media report the board wants to have, of course, we have no problem, but it could take a while because we have to get this all translated. So this is not a problem at all.
Well,
to do so in the future.
You would agree with me, would you not, that you released a press release 2 days after the raid occurred. Would you not agree with me that there were allegations constituting bribery, allegations of a sham contract with the intention of influencing a government official, a commission taxed consultant to influence a government official, constituting bribery, and then even one naming the owner, Professor Graf himself, of an attempt to influence a respondent in a parliamentary committee of inquiry improperly. Even though these are allegations and you issued a press release, wouldn't you say that those would fit within the four corners of 6.8.3 of your own reporting requirement and your own compliance plan that represents facts requiring reporting? Would you not say that's accurate?
Yeah.
Okay. Why didn't you fully then continue to report to the Nevada gaming authorities if that's a fact and it's required by your own compliance plan? Why the delay? I don't follow what would take so long, because these are fairly serious allegations of wrongdoing. And I just don't know why that wouldn't be reported on an ongoing basis to gaming authorities. Certainly in the state of Nevada. What other authorities want to do, that's obviously up to them. But in Nevada, we like full disclosure. We want to know all the information. And I'm not so certain in hearing you here today that in fact occurred when you tell me that some of the reports weren't given over to the gaming authorities. But I'm troubled by that. I just want to let you know that going forward, it doesn't need a further response. Lastly, let's switch gears here and get out of this quagmire, and let's go over to the transfer of interest concept. And I had just a couple of questions. Now, Professor Graff is transferring in the first phase of this 20% of his interest, 10, 5, and 5, 10 to his son, 5 to Mr. Presh, and 5 to Ms. Wimmer, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay, and that's just the first phase of this, correct?
That is correct, yes.
And what's the second phase, and what's the timing on that, and what's that going to involve?
The second step has already been filed. I filed an application for a transfer of interest for the second son of Johann Graf, Patrick Graf, and he shall be assigned a further 10%.
Okay, and I know at the board meeting, this is an easy one. You indicated that this is a concept of his and the powers to be of taking care of succession, right? I think that's the word.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. Could it be that Mr. Graff is getting out because of the fact of these allegations, as opposed to just a succession issue? Or is he thinking that down the road that some of this mud that's been thrown around in these allegations is in fact going to somehow land on him, since one of the allegations deals with him particularly? I mean, is it succession, or is it really he's trying to distance himself from the investigation that's ongoing?
No, this is pure succession plan. Mr. Graf turned 74 years, in January, and so this is a simple succession plan, and he wishes, to step back slowly, but not because of the allegations.
Okay, very good. Well, those were my follow-up questions, and I really appreciate you coming down today and answering these questions. I know some of them are difficult to air the laundry in an open proceeding, but sometimes we have to do that. The one thing for me, I'm probably the longest serving member in the history of Nevada gaming, which tells you how old I am. But there's one thing that I really don't ever like, and I don't like people that come in front of me for licensing and they have issues and they say, oh, these issues aren't really serious, and we give them what they want, we approve them, only to wake up in the next week or the next month or the next year that those very same things that came up in the meeting ended up being in the press again. And then we look like, how in the world could we give any approvals to somebody who's now been charged or convicted or is now in an investigation that we knew about during the time? And I really, one thing I've learned in being on this commission for way too long, but I know one thing. I don't like to get up in the morning and have my coffee and read it in the newspaper that somebody I gave an approval to before now is a subject of some kind of a criminal investigation. And that I'm just saying that so going forward, everybody knows how I feel about those kind of things. All right, let me go back to the commissioners and see if there are any other follow-up questions. I don't see any. Okay. Do we want to try to put together a motion or two motions, or and then we can discuss whatever motions may or may not be made? Who wants to jump in? Commissioner Cohen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. As I stated at the outset, I have no issue with the transfer of interest. Although Chairman Brown's comment about, is Mr. Graff getting out while the getting is good, at least it gives me comfort that he still has 85%. So I understand that. So I'd like to break the motions down and then ask the board one question before I go with the second matter. So I would move as follows. I would move to approve the applications for transfer of interest as read into the record by Madam Secretary.
Okay. Do we have a discussion on the motion on the transfer of interest? No discussions? I think we'll call for the vote then. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? All right, that motion unanimously carries.
Okay, as to the suitability, I'm going to further break this down into suitability for Thomas Graff and Mr. Rizard Presh with a third motion for Ms. Wimmer. As I totally agree with what the chairman and my colleagues have said regarding the dearth of information that we have been provided with. Makes it difficult for us to basically give the individuals a pat on the back and say, job well done, and goodbye and good luck, because anything can happen. But likewise, the record is not clear enough to penalize anyone at this juncture for these allegations. And tomorrow or next week, next month, next year, it may go away, or it may turn into a political corruption, So how do I balance the issue of I don't have a comfort level for giving them a full pat on the back and an approval? And at least I would like to propose in my motion for Mr. Graff and Mr. Presh a limited license of 2 years, so that during that period of time, we'll know where this investigation has gone. It won't be putting, the board or the commission in any sort of jeopardy for licensing people who maybe shouldn't have. And again, please do not take anything that I'm saying as any attempt to impugn the characters of these people. I'm relatively sure as I can be with the record that they're fine individuals and they're going to do a fine job. But I just feel a lot better about going about this, on a 2-year limited application. So what I would then propose the application be, I move for the approval of the applications of finding of suitability for Mr. Thomas Graff and Mr. Rizard Presh, with the suitability set to expire at midnight of the June 2023 Nevada Gaming Commission meeting on the day the item is heard.
Okay, so if I understand the motion as recited in the record, it stands in the record as to what it is. I understand it to be you're putting a 2-year condition on the licensing approvals of Mr. Thomas Graff and also Mr. Presh, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is there any discussion on the motion, on the 2-year limitation motion or comment?
I guess for me, yes, I don't understand, I guess, the justification for putting a limit on something when they're not the subjects of the investigation.
We don't know.
And I realize we don't know, but to me, all three stand in the same position. So it seems, I don't know, the need for a limitation on just a transfer of ownership just doesn't seem to be justified for what we have. I'm more concerned by the company's lack of reporting, especially even at the time. It's only a 2-day difference, but certainly by the time the raid occurred, that's something that should have been reported immediately. So I'm concerned with the company not reporting. I don't see anything with respect to the individuals. So.
Okay, let me follow up on that. I could support a 2-year condition on them. And the reason I would is because with all the things that are circulating out there and surrounding this, including our executive summary reports of these things, and the fact that the allegations are very, very seriously, I'm not comfortable that this investigation is going to go away anytime soon. Hopefully it does, and I wish everybody well, but it isn't. And if we keep a little bit of a rope around them to come back in 2 years, and also a duty to report, okay, I think that will be enough. I think that in light of what's come out in today's meeting and the non-disclosure of some information, I'd feel very able to support a 2-year condition and have them come back before us in 2 years again. So that I could support, but I don't. Commissioner Brown?
Well, I think the limitations that we have before us are simply the matters that we're ruling upon today, or that we're opining upon. And because I hear words like corruption and bribery, it gives me tremendous pause. And just to have the ability to revisit this issue, just to have some sort of a hook, I think it is appropriate just to have something on the record for some limitations, so we can have the ability, hopefully in the interim, based on the representations that we've made about what's important to the Gaming Commission, we really would like more information so that when it comes up again in 2 years, we can have full access to the information to make sure that nobody that is a transferee is the subject specifically, because we simply don't know. And so I think the burden is on the applicant to provide us with this information. And since they haven't done that, I have a bit of trepidation going forward without some limitation that's been proposed by Mr. Cohen here today. So I have to support that as well. But an understanding, it's only because we don't have sufficient information to make a decision with full information. Had we had it in advance, we probably would have said not an issue, but focusing on the non-disclosure, like Ms. Solis-Rainey said, is important.
I agree. And, we always have in our toolbox, as do the licensees when they have conditions imposed, they always have the ability to petition and come back in front of the commission on a pleading to change or modify or remove a condition. And I'm just troubled by the fact that this investigation is still going after 2 years or so. And I really think that with a 2-year condition on it, if in fact these proceedings go away, these proceedings being the ones involving the allegations of criminal wrongdoing, go away earlier, the licensee could always be in a position where he could avail themselves of a remedy of coming back in front of us and asking us to remove or modify that condition. Commissioner Cohen has placed in there for a 2-year limitation. So I don't know if there's any other further discussion on this. If not, I'll call for a vote on this. Okay, let's have a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion unanimously carries. Okay. Did you have anything else, Commissioner Khan?
Yes, I have a comment for the board and probably Chief Labadie regarding Ms. Wimmer. As an additional condition on this one as managing director, I respectfully suggest I would like to impose a condition that the managing director report to the board not less than every 30 days a status report regarding the ongoing investigation with the Austrian Central Public Prosecutor's Office, commonly referred to as the WKSIA.
I see Chair Gibson's getting warmed up. Yes.
They are reporting to us on a regular basis, but it's a condition that you can add if you'd like.
Okay.
I noticed on that we do have a provision where we can ask for that to occur, and I think it's wise to mandate that every 30 days that they do give you an update, and it may be nothing more than a one-liner, nothing's changed. Okay, so it isn't going to be very intense, but if something does change, at least we're going to have a 30-day requirement where we can have that by a required condition to come to your attention. So I think that's the thoughts of Commissioner Cohen on that motion. Is that coming from on that?
Yes, Mr. Chair. So my motion would be as follows. I move to approve the application for finding of suitability as managing director for Ms. Bridget Wimmer, subject to the following limitations. Number one, the finding of suitability shall expire at midnight of the June 23rd Nevada Gaming Commission meeting on the day the item is heard. Number two, the managing director, Ms. Bridget Wimmer, submit to the board not less than every 30 days a status report regarding the ongoing investigation with the Austrian Central Public Prosecutor's Office.
Commissioner Cohen,
There's
does that
also-
include her finding of suitability as a member?
As a member and managing director. Thank you.
And I could support that motion, Commissioner Cohen. I notice we have our regulations in NRS, but 5.045 gives us authority to do that, that the commission may impose a condition upon a license or order of registration to require implementation of a compliance review and reporting system by the licensee or registrant. Certainly a written plan and things of that nature are contemplated there. And I think that's a good condition that will ensure compliance. If there isn't compliance, then we would be able to take the necessary action. So I can support that. Any other discussion on the motion?
Just for the record, I mean, again, I think the licensees all have that obligation, and it's in the regulation. It's something that I understand they're doing anyways. I disfavor adding unnecessary conditions, especially when it's something that I already have the obligation to do. And I think when we start adding individually to licensee conditions, then it somehow dilutes maybe the understanding of others that don't have that same condition. You know, I think it may make them feel like they aren't already bound by that, when, in my opinion, at least, I think they are. So I will, just for the record, I mean, obviously I don't have any problem with Ms. Wimmer's application, but I think the conditions are necessary.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Rosas. Souls ring. Okay, Commissioner Brown, did you have any comments, or should I call for the vote?
I think it's warranted under the circumstances. I'm not troubled by it. I think simply we're just calling it out to make sure it's not a recurring issue forward going, just because I do think there's some laxness on the self-reporting. So we just want to call it out to make sure it's not an issue. But I understand, of course, the concerns of Commissioner Solis Rainey that we don't want to add on something that's superfluous because it already exists. But just for this specific reason and the specific issues that were, raised in terms of bribery, corruption, allegations, a 2-year ongoing investigation that has no specific end in sight, I do think it's warranted just to make sure that somebody has accountability and make sure it gets done every single month, every 30 days. I do appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, then I'll call for the vote. All in favor of Vice Chair Cohen's motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion unanimously carries. Okay, then that's it. Anything further on this? All right, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all for
Thank
appearing.
you as well, joining us this morning, and we look forward to continuing in the future. And we appreciate the time you came, and I appreciate you coming by video, which made it a little easier for you. And we also thank your counsel for him doing his job and doing a good job in terms of articulating some positions that were of concern to the commission. So thank you very much for joining us. All right, we'll go to the next item, Madam Secretary.
Danke. Guten Abend.
All right.
Danke, guten Abend.
Next item is non-restricted number 2, which the applications of Leroy Sanford for finding of suitability as a trustee and beneficiary of the Sanford Gaming Trust, Leisure Gaming Inc. for a transfer of interest, and the Leroy Sanford for licensure as a shareholder. The recommendation of the Gaming Control Board is for approval. I believe the applicant and his counsel are appearing via Zoom.
Okay, do we have Mr. Nylander and an applicant? Mr. Sanford?
Good morning. This is Lee Sanford.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you today?
I am fine, sir. How are you?
Good, good. How's your counsel doing?
Good morning, Mr. Moran.
Good morning. Are you ready to make a presentation on your item?
I am. Can you hear me okay and see me okay?
Yes, we can. You look just the same as you used to look when you're sitting over here at this table.
Just as ugly as ever, right?
I don't think so.
Well, thank you.
Tell me a little bit about this, and then let's hear from your client, and we'll get through this thing.
Will do. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. For the record, my name is Dennis Nylander with the law firm Kempfer Kroll, and I'm here appearing today with my client Lee, who you just met, and we want to thank you for allowing us to present via remotely today. Lee is a resident of Northern Nevada, and certainly any cost savings for him are helpful for us. So with your permission, I will give a brief overview, and then I'll have Lee give you a little bit of his background. What you have today is the applications for Lee to be found suitable as a trustee and beneficiary of the Sanford Gaming Trust. That trust holds 17.5% of the shares of Leisure Gaming, Inc., which is a Nevada licensed slot operator. We're also asking for approval for Lee to transfer that stock as trustee to himself as beneficiary under the trust. And as a result of that, we're also asking for him to be found suitable as a shareholder. By way of background, the trust was originally established by William Sanford, who's Lee's father. The trust was approved by this commission back in April of 2006. The terms of the trust provide that upon William's death, his spouse, Patricia Sanford, would become the trustee and beneficiary. So that was when Lee passed away, Patricia became licensed in those capacities in August of 2017. Under the trust, the terms of the trust, it provides that upon Patricia's death, the trust assets, which is essentially the stock, would be distributed to Lee as a successor trustee. When Patricia's health began to decline, Lee approached me. He helped his stepmom go through this process previously, and he understood this, how intense it is and what's involved in a non-restricted investigation. And so we got started immediately in getting him his things in order to be an applicant. And he did file his application while she was ill, and then unfortunately she passed away shortly thereafter while the investigation was ongoing. So with the approval of the board and commission, Lee would carry out his duties and transfer the shares to himself as an individual. We may be back in front of you at a future date if he decides to hold the shares in a different way. But at this time, he hasn't decided, and it's important to him and his family that these first steps be approved. Lee has never had any role in the operation of the business. He doesn't intend to either. He's simply going to be a shareholder and exercise the rights of any common shareholder who's licensed. So with respect to these applications, out of an abundance of caution, just for the information of the commission, we asked the company Leisure not to make any distributions to the trust until this investigative process and hearings were done. So there have not been any distributions to the trust since Patricia passed away. So we thought that would just be a lot cleaner rather than having to set up an escrow and just make sure we did it in the cleanest way possible. And so that's pretty much what the application is. I'd like to have Lee just give you a little bit of background on himself, as it's the first time he's appeared before you.
Right. And I appreciate the presentation, and you illustrate what a good counsel will do for a client and keeping them through troubled waters by making sure everything's covered. And he chose wisely with counsel on this one. And I don't have any questions for Mr. Sanford. I appreciate him coming down. Quite frankly, I would have put this on the consent agenda, but he's never been licensed before. I wanted to get a chance to see him again, although I saw him at the board meeting, and your presentation was good there as well. I don't have any areas of concern. The report has no areas. He's going to be a passive investor, it seems like, and not get involved. And I don't have any questions. If he'd like to briefly tell us a little bit about himself, this is his time to do that. It doesn't have to be real lengthy, because I really think that you're going to have a lot of support from the commission on this application. So go ahead, Mr. Sanford. It's your turn to talk.
Okay, can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for your time today and obviously for considering my application. Just a little bit about myself. I was born and raised in Nevada. I'm fourth generation. I lived most of my life in the Reno area. I went to school here in Reno, graduated from UNR, and currently reside in Reno. I appreciate through the application process that it was very thorough, but the investigator was very helpful and worked with me to get things accomplished. Myself, I've really kind of been, I guess, from a unique perspective. I really finished college and I've been at the same company, UPS, for 34 years, and I'm retiring in about 20 months from now. And I'm going to, as you note, to use this income as part of my retirement, and it will definitely be a passive thing for me as far as involvement with leisure. And again, just wanted to thank you for the time to appear in front of you, as well as considering my application.
Well, thank you. And again, I have no questions. Lifetime resident of, from up north. It's perfect. I think it was a good fit, and hopefully we'll see you again sometime in the future. I have no questions. Let me see if my colleagues have any questions. Commissioner Brown.
How are you today, sir?
Good morning.
Thank you for, good morning. Good to see you. And I just wanted to offer my condolences, and hopefully you might get bored in retirement and start dabbling and start visiting the locations. But if not, I completely understand, but you're welcome to.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your kind comments.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Solis Rainey.
I didn't have anything either. Your application is very clean, and I just want to add my condolences on the loss of your stepmother.
Would you like to make a motion?
I'm happy to make a motion if there's nothing else. I move for approval of non-restricted item number 2 as read into the record and recommended by the Gaming Control.
Very good. Motion made. Any discussion by the commission on the motion?
No,
Not seeing any. I'd call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Nobody else there to oppose you. Good luck to you, Mr. Sanford, going forward, and looking forward to seeing you again in the future. And it's always good to meet somebody for the first time. So good luck.
You bet. Thank
Good
you
luck.
very much.
Nice
Thank
seeing
you,
you,
Commissioner.
Mr. Nylander.
All
Yes,
right.
thank you, Commissioner.
All right. Nice to see you. All right. Then let's go to the next item.
Next item is non-restricted number 3, which are the applications of Raymond Paul Pignot for finding of suitability and/or licensure as an officer, key executive, and manager for Mohegan Tribal Gaming Authority, doing business as Mohegan Gaming and Entertainment, MGNV Holding LLC, and MGNV LLC, doing business as Mohegan Sun Casino Las Vegas, as noted on the agenda. The recommendation of the Gaming Control Board is for approval. I believe we have a disclosure on this item.
All right. Thank you, Madam Secretary. And good morning, Mr. Rubenstein.
Good morning.
And I know who you brought with you. Would you like to state your name on the record?
Raymond Pino.
Okay, very good. Oh, we have a disclosure here.
I don't have that many today.
All right,
You'll be
very
happy with
good.
me.
Go ahead, Commissioner Brown. One moment while we indulge this.
Thank you, Chair Moran. I do have a disclosure to make for non-restricted item number 3. Mohegan Tribal Gaming Authority is an adverse contract party in a matter handled by Lewis Roque of the law firm where I am a partner in which I'm not personally involved. I have no pecuniary interest in the outcome of this agenda item. I do not believe the independence of judgment of a reasonable person in my position would be affected by the relationship described on the record, and I therefore intend to participate. Deputy Attorney General Breinig, is this disclosure satisfactory under NRS 281A 420 and in compliance with the disclosure requirements?
is.
Usually over there.
Yes, it is, Commissioner.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Brown. All right, then I guess we're ready to go.
Okay.
Mr. Rubenstein.
Yes, Mr.
Good
Chairman.
morning.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, Madam Secretary. Mark Rubenstein, a law firm of Reed Rubenstein and Bogatz. Happy to appear before you today in person. It's been way too long, and appreciate the opportunity to be here. I've got with me the applicant, Raymond Pino, who is currently the Chief Executive Officer of Mohegan Gaming and Entertainment. Originally was Chief Operating Officer when he filed this application. We have just a short affirmative presentation by Mr. Pino to give you some background, and then we're happy to answer any questions.
Excellent, thank you. Good morning again.
Good morning, Chairman Moran and esteemed commission members and Madam Secretary. Good morning. My name is Ray Pino, and I am the CEO of Mohegan Gaming and Entertainment. I want to first thank you for taking the time for considering my application for a gaming license in the great state of Nevada. I recognize that approval of a gaming license is a privilege, and I take that responsibility very seriously. To tell you a little bit about myself, I have been with the Mohegan tribe since February of 2001, starting as legal counsel for the tribe. While at the tribe, I was fortunate enough to provide the opportunity to work on important transactions on behalf of the tribe, such as casino debt financing, as well as the purchase of the WNBA franchise, the Connecticut Sun. In 2005, I moved from the tribe to join the tribal's casino operations. Since joining the casino, I have been fortunate to have been provided with the opportunity to assume greater responsibilities, steadily working my way up through the organization. I have had numerous roles at our flagship property over the years, including several years as president and general manager. In July of 2020, I was promoted to Chief Operating Officer of Mohegan Gaming and Entertainment, and just earlier this year was appointed as CEO. So now I come before you seeking approval for a gaming license in my capacity as the company's CEO. Although my application was submitted to the COO, since the appointment of my as CEO was only recently completed. I feel blessed and fortunate for all the opportunities the Mohegan Tribe, Mohegan Gaming Entertainment have afforded me over the 20 plus years of working with the organization. In my current role, I'm responsible for the strategic direction, development, and growth of the enterprise, and look forward to the continued growth of our organization, including our operations in Las Vegas. On a personal note, I'm a happily married father of 3 children, all who will be attending college this fall. I reside in Glastonbury, Connecticut, in the same home my wife and I built in 2006. I lived in Connecticut my entire life and completed my education at Connecticut institutions, doing my undergraduate work at the University of Connecticut and my law degree at Quinnipiac University. I want to thank you again for your time this morning and your consideration of my application for a gaming license in the state of Nevada. I'm happy to answer questions that you may have.
All right, very good. And I paid particular attention when you appeared in front of the board, and it was a very good job you did there. I don't have any questions right now. I'm going to reserve my right. I'm going to have some questions maybe later, but at this point, I'm going to turn to my colleagues. I'm going to ask Commissioner Solis Rainey first if she has some questions for you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Mr. Pino. How are you this morning?
Good morning, Commissioner.
Thank you for appearing before us today, and congratulations on your appointment as CEO.
Thank you.
I've reviewed your application, and on a personal, the personal application is very clean, so I have no concerns with that. But there are a few things that I'd appreciate you providing us updates on.
Okay.
And if we could maybe start with how the Las Vegas property is doing since it opened in March.
We were very pleased with the opening activities that we had with the attendance at the activities. I think it settled in for a while after that with some of the restrictions that were still in place that have since been removed and lifted. We have steadily seen the business continue to grow over the last 60 days, and we fully anticipate that it's going to continue in that direction. Hotel occupancy with our partners continues to grow, as is our operations there. So we're very pleased with the direction it's heading and are confident that long term it'll be returning to full normal operations.
Great. Are you fully staffed at the property currently?
We are not staffed to what we had originally budgeted for in our models when we originally did that. When we originally prepared our models, when we entered into the lease agreement with our partners there, we do believe that right now we have sufficient staff to handle all of our current volumes and needs. There may become a time in the future as volumes continue to build that we will need to add some additional staffing.
Okay. So, are you below expected levels of workforce due to just the business needs, or are you having any issues recruiting the appropriate individuals?
We actually have sufficient staff right now. We do. We are not having problems right now recruiting staff for our Las Vegas property. In full disclosure, I will tell you several of our properties throughout the United States are having those issues.
Now, I understand, it's been a tough time for a lot of people in recruiting good employees. They seem to be at a premium these days,
yes.
Which I guess is a good problem to have. What's the status of filling the COO position?
It's something I'm taking under serious consideration. I've had several discussions with our management board on that position. I'm of the opinion that I'll work harder during the time of filling it with the appropriate person and at the right time. There'll be further discussions coming up in the next several weeks with our management board on what direction we go with that. It will be a position that ultimately gets filled, but I'd rather find the right person than just fill the position with anybody.
Doing double duty is tough though, and I'd be interested in you telling us a little bit about how you're balancing the two roles, and if the board or maybe other management level is stepping up to provide you some support with that.
I'm very fortunate to be surrounded by a very professional and experienced staff. The executive team at MGE is exceptionally well experienced, several who have been licensed in Nevada for quite a while. Very confident in their abilities and their advice and the direction that they provide me. So they're all pitching in and we're all working together. I'm a very collaborative person about how I go doing business and working with the executive team and reaching collaborative decisions. So I think that everybody's taking on a little bit more responsibility. Obviously, I'm taking on more responsibility, but you know, a little bit of my responsibility at home has been lifted as my 3 children are now all going to be in college, and they don't need dad around as much as they used to, unfortunately.
I don't know if that relieves stress or adds. I have 2 in college. Let me ask you this. You report to the board, right? To the MGE board?
Yes.
Okay. And right now, while you're wearing these 2 hats, how many direct reports do you have?
Well, I would have the 6 general managers and the 5 executive team members, so it would be 11.
Okay. And once you fill the COO position, that's going to decrease to just 1 or 2?
Would decrease to the 6 executive team members, the other 6 6 other executive team members.
So you'll
all the general managers.
The general managers will report up to that position.
That's correct.
Got it. Okay. And your properties in Canada are still closed right now, right? Correct.
That is correct.
And do you have any indication of when those are going to be able to reopen?
Things are looking very favorable. The provinces of Ontario has recently announced that they're going to be moving to their phase 2 of reopening, which is a week earlier than they had originally intended. They have announced that if the trends continue in the manner that they are, they would move to phase 3 in 3 weeks. So we're looking at a date probably around the middle to late July.
Great. And how's your development going in South Korea? Is it progressing on schedule?
Oh, well, it's 4 years in the making, so I wouldn't say that it's on schedule, but I would say that significant steps have been made along in that transaction, that we have a gentleman over there that has been working particularly on the finance to move that forward. We've had some very good movement on that, and we're confident that things are going to move forward shortly.
I think I saw in the materials that you'd recently brought back a former CEO, Mr. Soper,
that is
to oversee that property. Do you have direct oversight, or is that all fall under his bailiwick?
Mr. Soper actually reports directly to the management board for the financing and the development of that transaction right now, because that transaction is really in the financing stage of the transaction.
So you don't have direct oversight over him?
I do not. Ultimately, the Korea property would fall underneath me when it actually gets back to construction and operations. But at this time, they're really in the financing stage.
What's the scope of his responsibilities, as I believe he was international president?
Yes, that's correct.
So will his position fall under yours?
I would assume it was. That's the indication I've gotten. Yes, that long term that would fall under the CEO of MGE. That's
a reversal then. At some point while you were president GM of Mohegan Sun, you probably reported to him.
I reported to Mr. Soper on several occasions. Yes.
Okay. So how's that?
We're friends. Bobby and I have been friends for a long time. We know each other for a very, very long time. We have a tremendous amount of respect for each other, and we work very well together. In fact, Bobby and I have a weekly call to collaborate on things that are going on. So we talk and keep each other up to date.
Great. Do you have any new developments since the legalization of the iGaming in Connecticut? I know at the board meeting you reported that there would need to be some compact amendments that might take a little bit to start or get submitted. Where are you at with that?
Yeah, that's accurate. The government to government relations, I should say, have been going on between the 2 tribes and the governor. My understanding is that they're reaching final stages of the terms of those compacts to submit for approval. The federal government has up to 45 days to approve them once it's submitted. The goal is to have them submitted by the end of this month. So we would seek approval back no later than middle of August to move forward with iGaming and sports wagering.
Are your, I don't know if partners is the right word, but the other tribe that you're collaborating with, are they going through the same process?
They're working as a tri-party, so because the compact amendments will be materially similar, absent the names, they're all working together to have similar amendments to be submitted at the same time.
Okay, great. So they'll all stay pretty much on the same track.
That's correct, yes.
And I read somewhere recently that your company's relationship with the Tunica Biloxi tribe of Louisiana is coming to a close. Would you mind bragging a little bit about that relationship and what you've accomplished?
Yeah, I'm tremendously proud of that. I fortunately had several years of opportunity to work on that with that property and with that tribe myself, with the general manager down there. When we took over the management of that property, it was in default on its debt. It was doing in single digits on its EBITDA, and unable to pay its bill or pay its bills or conduct any capital improvements. Since that time, we believe that they'll finish this year and have tripled their EBITDA. They have raised wages at the property. They've offered raises for team members for 3 consecutive years. They've reinstated a 401k plan for team members. They've offered a bonus for the last 2 years, and I'd be fully surprised if there's not a third year of a bonus that they receive as a result of the performance. The tribe has determined that as a result of that they would like to take over management of that. They are on very solid financial footing at this point. They could be debt-free within 7 years based on their current projections and their growth trajectory. They have sports wagering coming as well, which we helped them introduce. So I am very proud of what our team accomplished there.
As you should be, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to get you to lay that out on the record. I think the fact that you've invested your knowledge to help turn around another tribal nation's gaming enterprise says a lot about the priorities, and it just demonstrates that sharing that knowledge doesn't weaken your gaming company at all. It just strengthens both of you. So I was very happy when I read that and wanted to have you get that on the record. And then lastly, you're an enrolled member of the Mohegan tribe, correct?
Yes, I am.
And are you the first member to hold the role of CEO?
Unfortunately, I am not. Bobby Sofer was for a brief period of time.
Great. Well, I still thought it was pretty incredible that you started in 2001. They've grown their leadership basically internally, and that's a great accomplishment. So congratulations, on your appointment. And with that, I don't have any additional questions and would turn it over to my colleagues.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner. Nice job. Commissioner Cohen?
Oh, yes, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Solis Rainey, she covered everything. So the only thing I wanted to state, your application is perfect. No issues whatsoever. I wanted to commend you because you brought up proactively the issue, which will be heard later in today's agenda, the complaint that's been filed as a result of the failing to comply with the governor's directives.
Yes.
You owned it. It happened, and I don't want to get into it, but I just appreciate the candor which you said it happened. We've taken steps that were, even though the directive has been lifted, but at least I think we all sitting on this commission appreciate when someone steps forward and says, "Yeah, it happened. We did it. I own it. We're sorry." And I just want to say I appreciate that. So
Thank you,
I have no questions regarding your suitability.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Commissioner Brown?
Thank you. I just did have a quick question. Thank you for coming today. How long did you practice law before joining Mohegan Gaming in 2001?
So I actually never practiced law outside of an in-house counsel position. I did practice law. Oh God, you're going to test my memory. I was with the tribe practicing law from 2001 to 2005. I was senior vice president of administration from about 2005 to 2007, which oversaw the general counsel's office. And then prior to that, I had worked as in-house counsel for a mortgage finance company for, you're going to test my memory on this, it's 3 years maybe. So maybe in total actually practicing law in-house for 10 years, but never outside of in-house counsel.
Okay. Do you have any courtroom experience?
I do not.
Well, nothing wrong with that. I think you bring insight, and I commend you on elevating your position, and I think you'll do a wonderful job.
Thank you very much.
I have no reservations.
All right. Very good. All right. I was just going to make a couple of comments. I'm listening to you saying you're practicing law. I've been practicing law almost 50 years, and I have a problem because I'm not getting any better. I keep practicing and practicing and practicing. So I commend you on changing gears early on.
Thank you.
And I think you found a nice home there. I watched your presentation, like I said, at the board, and I looked at your reports, and I'm pretty excited about you taking the helm in this capacity over there, and I think I'm really looking forward to some really good things out of that location. I think Commissioner Solis Rainey, hit the nail on the head on a lot of these questions, and she hit a couple of them that I was going to ask you about, but there's no need to. I don't have any real additional questions for you. I think it's pretty amazing that with the COVID that we had for a year and a half here, that the gamers are still out there alive and well. And now that we're past that, places like you opened in the midst of it, which is an incredible hurdle. And you talk about, Gentine, and you talk about Circa. Only in Nevada do you see those kind of things happening in Nevada gaming. And I'm really excited about the Tribal Gaming Authority and getting involved here in Nevada, especially during those times. And can't wish you well enough in your endeavors. So
Thank you very
looking
much,
for
Chairman. I
really good
appreciate
things.
that.
So I don't have any questions. Do we have a motion, Commissioner?
Sure.
Rainey?
I'm happy to make a motion. Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of non-restricted item number 3 as read into the record and recommended by the Gaming Control.
Very good. We have a motion made. Do we have any discussion? I call for the vote. Not seeing any discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, it unanimously carries, and good luck to you, sir, and good luck to the operation over there.
Thank you all very
Great
much.
spot.
I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Congratulations.
All right, Madam Secretary.
Next item is non-restricted number 5, which are the applications of Alex Morello and Louis Armona for pledges of their membership interest in MEI GSR Holdings LLC, as noted on the agenda. The recommendation of the Gaming Control Board is for approval. Chairman Moran, I believe we have a disclosure and a recusal on this item.
All right, let's take them. Commissioner Cohen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Morello. How are you, Mr. Stoll?
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. Secretary.
Mr. Chairman, I have disclosure to make on non-restricted number 5. I have previously represented MEI GSR Holdings over a number of years. My prior representation actually involved the underlying note with Bank of America, which I worked with Mr. Stoll. I wrote an opinion letter on that. Therefore, the independence of a reasonable person in my situation would materially be affected by this relationship, because this is a clear case of, unfortunately, me having disqualified myself because of a potential or perceived conflict of interest. So I am going to be abstaining from voting in this matter. Deputy Attorney General Brining, is that a sufficient disclosure for the record?
Yes, it is, Commissioner.
And with that, unfortunately, I must leave the room. Thank you.
And I have a brief disclosure to make, Chair Moran, if I may, while he's walking out.
Yes, Commissioner Brown.
My law firm, Lewis Roca, represents MEI GSR Holdings in an unrelated matter in which I'm not personally involved. I have no pecuniary interest in the outcome of this agenda item, and I don't believe the independence of judgment of a reasonable person in my position would be affected by the relationship I've just described on the record, and I therefore intend to participate. Deputy Attorney General Breinig, is this disclosure satisfactory under NRS 281A.420 and in compliance with the disclosure requirements?
Yes, the disclosure is adequate, Commissioner.
Thank you.
All right, very good. Thank you. Good morning, almost afternoon. Mr. Stoller, are you going to present? Would you,
Yes, please.
On the record, put everybody that's on either side of you on the record? And
Thank you. I'm Alan Stoller, Chief Financial Officer, Morello Group. I have Alex Morello, Chairman of Morello Group, and Mike Longi, who is Chief Financial Officer of Morello Gaming. We are here, Chairman Moran, esteemed members, Madam Secretary. We're here to seek approval of a pledge of a membership interest of Alex Morello and Louis Armona, their membership interest in the Grand Sierra Resort, which is part of a loan package which we closed on December 29th of 2020. The pledge is actually a replacement of an existing pledge, which was part of the old package and was refinanced. Mr. Morello and Mr. Armona purchased Grand Sierra Resort, as you know, on March 31st, 2011. Have made significant improvements to the facility since that time. And the new loan facility provided added liquidity to both Grand Sierra and also the Sahara, which we subsequently purchased. Part of those funds from the Grand Sierra financing were used for the Sahara. We are here to answer any questions you may have.
okay. I didn't know if after your presentation last time, Mr. Longi and yourself spoke at length, if you want to do that, talk a little bit about the Sahara and also GVR, if you want to talk a little bit about how those hotels are doing right now. I know, just to give you a heads up, I saw that you said that, I think your quote was on GSR, you're hitting on all cylinders. And, you know, being an automotive buff, I kind of like that. I hope there's gas in the tank, as Chairman Alamo used to say, for that. But in any event, the Sahara I know is tough. I go back to days at the Sahara when I was sneaking in as a kid so I could swim in the pool for free. I didn't have no money, but they let me take a lounge chair now and then.
We'll have a new pool for you this year that you can go sneak into
You
too.
might
We
see
won't
me, but
report
it
you.
won't be a pretty picture now. But in any event, tell me a little bit. You said on the Sahara, things are turning around and positive in cash flow the last few months, and that's encouraging to me. I'm happy to hear that. So tell me a little bit. And Mr. Earl, I appreciate you coming down. I know that you're out of the jurisdiction. We almost had to send people to go get you.
You did.
To get you back here. But I've heard a lot over the years about you, and I've also heard a lot over the years about the fantastic things you do at your locations. So I did want to see you for a change and to make you work a little bit harder than you already do.
Well, I haven't slept very much, so I was summoned here, and I want to make sure I was in front of all you guys. And I appreciate everything you do for me. You've always been very complimentary of what we've accomplished, what we did. I remember you were there when I first started, and unfortunately they were not, but you were, and along with Commissioner Elmo, and he gave me a lot of good comments when I first got my license back 12 years ago. And since then, I can tell you we have not disappointed. We've worked our asses off. We have made Reno. It used to be last property. It was basically weeks away from being boarded and shut down to now #1 property. We're kicking everyone's ass, and I'm very proud of that. And at Sahara, we've turned it around. It's a property that was also losing over $100 million when they first opened up, and I can tell you that we had the best quarter ever. This quarter we're currently in, and we're doing extremely well. We're making money and doing very well. And that's considering we don't have a pool, we don't have Magic Mike, we don't have restaurants opened up. We have basically don't have much to offer, but we do a hell of a job taking care of our customers. I'm very proud of that.
I've heard that. You made me think of when I was in high school. I met Elvis Presley at the Sahara Hotel indirectly.
Wow.
And it was pretty incredible. But I do have a lot of fond memories about the Sahara, and I'm glad to see that it is doing better. I mean, you're down at the north end of the strip, and that's always been a tough sale. And, you know, I was hoping with the Fontainebleau when it was going that would generate a little activity there on the old Riviera site. And maybe with Gantine, you'll get some of that spillover down at your location as well and help you out down there. So I know with Ruffin over there at the Circus now, I'm talking about that property across the street from you, that, you know, it looks like you can have a breakout.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%.
So I didn't have, and you know, one thing I did want to spread on the record is, you know, and I understand the concept of the transaction. You're pledging your interest in B of A, and you know you're getting 140, I think it is, and you're going to pay back an existing loan that you had. And I wanted you or Mr. Stoller just to put on the record how the rest of the money is going to break out, because I think at the end of the day you end up with $4 million liquidity after you take care of and direct these funds to the Sahara in these different locations. So if you could just tell me how that loan is going to be utilized on the record.
The loan, first of all, was paid back the existing loan, so it was a total refinance. But then as part of that too, $40 million was taken as a distribution to Alex. Of that, $4 million actually went back to GSR for CapEx. 16 million went into GSR, and we're doing extensive revitalization CapEx there. 10 million was used to pay back short-term loans we had taken out during the whole COVID shutdown. We had actually 3 businesses, the 2 casinos, and also the Arizona Coyotes shut down. And then 10 million was kept just as liquidity.
Okay, very good. Very good. All right. Well, I didn't have any other questions right now. I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues and see if they have some questions. Commissioner Brown? Pardon me?
Can I interject?
I can.
Can I interject?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
I apologize. Something that Mr. Solar said earlier, nudge something in my mind. I didn't believe I had any disclosures, but I believe that my firm was local counsel on a matter involving a brand dispute with under the name of SLS before, I think before you went back to Sahara. I wasn't involved in it personally, and it wasn't material to our firm, but I believe that just concluded in the last couple months. So I wanted to just make that part of the record. I don't believe the independence or judgment of a reasonable person would be affected. So I do intend to participate, but I would have disclosed it earlier had I recognized.
If that's satisfactory.
Yeah, if I had recognized the connection between that. Deputy Attorney Brian, is that sufficient?
Yes,
disclosure?
Commissioner.
Thank you. I apologize. Go ahead, Commissioner
No,
Brown.
Thank you.
No worries at all. Those disclosures are important.
All right, Commissioner Brown.
Thank you so much, Chair.
All right.
Thank you for coming today. I'm very happy to meet all of you, and I'm new here, so I'm still trying to get familiarized with everyone. And you know, the background here, Mr. Murillo, is very fascinating to me. You're involved in construction, entertainment, real estate banking, and food service through the Murillo Group that was founded and overseen by you. If you could just identify yourself for the record and tell me how you got started into all of this and how you got to be here today. It's fascinating to me.
That's a long story. We don't have much. We don't,
Keep it short. We have
we
the
don't have
gallery
enough time.
waiting.
We don't have. Where do I start? It's. I started there at the age of 16. Started very young, and just my parents gave me an opportunity to take over one of the businesses that I've been working when I was very young. I took over, and the only thing I'll tell you, it's a quick story, is that I had worked with my parents. I was 9 years old, 10 years old in the bridal business. They had bridal wear and tuxedo department. And so as I'm going through high school, I was probably a sophomore in high school. And my dad came up to me and said, hey, the bridal wear we have and the tuxedo department that we were rented out, the people stopped paying the rent. And we want you to, why don't you go and take over? It's an opportunity. You're 16 years old and take over and see what you can do in the business. I said, okay, great. Any catch? Well, you got to pay rent. I said, okay. And I knew, because I was collecting the checks at the time, that they were paying $700 a month in rent, and my dad charged me $750. So I was not happy because, like, Dad, why are you charging me more money than you charged them? And they couldn't pay the rent. But that's where I started back when I was 16 years old. And then from there, I went into restaurant business at the age of 20. Bought a lot of real estate. Bought my first property when I was 16 years old, $200,000. I put down $20,000 cash. Been investing in real estate all my life. Invested in banking, insurance, media business, casinos, food manufacturing, Coyote sports franchises. It's a long story, but I will tell you one thing. One thing I pride myself is that, and I don't knock anybody because, you know, we all do what we do, right? People use a lot of OPM, other people's money. I use my own money. And I always put my balls on the line every day in what we do. And we work very hard. The entire organization, we have about a total of about 10,000 team members strong. And we're all very focused, very dedicated in what we do. I'm very taking a lot of pride in that. And I'm very happy to be a resident in Nevada. I love the state.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It's a very interesting Genesis story. I was just very fascinated by it because I'm not familiar. And can you tell me, in terms of being a community partner or a leader with organizations and diversity and inclusion issues, do you have any projects that you're involved in with the community?
Do you want to go on that? Go ahead. Go see if you think. See if you think. Let Mike speak a second, then I'll
Yeah, I'm Mike Longi, EVP and CFO for Morello Gaming. I joined Alex's team in January. Prior to that, I spent 30 years with MGM Resorts. And as far as the teamwork goes at the resorts, it's quite fascinating. I advise Alex on both the GSR and the Sahara, and the team members that we're bringing back to the workplace. It's amazing to get people back to work in these projects that are happening, and even through the COVID experience. But it's really good to see these assets being added, especially at the Sahara, as the chairman alluded to see these projects all happening, the pool being built, the restaurants being built, the showroom being built. These assets are dead on, and it will create more jobs for people in this community, and will continue to have the jobs for the people that worked at the Sahara all these years. So there are, you know, foundations in the company for the community benefits, But most important is getting people back to work. I mean, that's the great thing, and keeping people working. But there is a great community spirit at the properties here in Nevada, and I know, Alex, it is Morello Group in Southern California. There's a very strong foundation, community foundation. Al can speak to that more because he's in the Downey location, but there is a Morello Group community foundation. We probably can talk to that.
Yeah, no, that's very true. In fact, part of the foundation is right behind me is my daughter, Alexis, who's now is going to be a chairman of our Morello Group Foundation, which we plan to give back, and she could probably recite 20 different things we're working on. But I truly believe in giving back to the community and giving back to our organizations. It's very important for me. And you know, I don't want to go into all the disclosures of how much money I've given, but it's in the tens of millions that I've given in different nonprofit organizations and things I believe in. More importantly, it's education. It's extremely important to me. So we're constantly working with different companies and nonprofits.
Thank you. I do appreciate that explanation. It's nice to see your daughter here and that she's involved in these things. But in all of the things that you're involved in, I mean, there's so many different business facets. What is your passion project? What are you most interested in? Is it gaming? I wish it were gaming, but I don't want to put words in your mouth.
It is gaming. I love gaming. It's in my DNA. It's my drug. It's my drug of choice. I love it. All our team members, and when I walk back and forth, it'll be 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, and they watch me, and the dealers and the slide techs and the bartenders, and they just love to see me on the floor and talking to them. It's very special to me. I love it.
Thank you. I'm happy to hear that. And can you speak to me briefly about your company culture in the workplace? I wanted to touch briefly, and wanted you here so you could discuss some of the things that were raised in the dysfunction in the desert article regarding the Coyotes, Arizona NFL, and all those people that were interviewed, talking about outbursts from the top of the organization and some issues with bonuses and people getting paid in terms of a top prospect maybe, and then signing bonuses for players, and some issues with corporate partners and vendors and suppliers. If you could please speak in some specificity for the record, because as I understand it, these are allegations, it's an article, and I think it's one-sided not to hear from you. And so I'd like to hear from you on these things.
Well, first of all, I never read the article. I don't read fiction. I don't read that. So people have opinions, right? You have to respect people's opinions. But what I can tell you is that I turned an organization, the Coyotes was losing $50 million a year, was in complete disarray. Management team was in shambles, and we've turned it around. And when you do that, you're going to ruffle some feathers, right? You've got to take control of the team. I'm happy to report this year, I got to be careful what I say because it's public, right? But I believe that this year we will no longer lose any money, and that's a huge testament to the organization itself, what we're doing, the people we put in place. The president is no longer there. He was very disgruntled when I fired him, and I had an issue with the general manager who had issues with being truthful and cheating and a bunch of other things. But those individuals were not happy. They were making 7 figures. They were not happy, and of course, they had to say something. And so they went to a reporter, and that reporter, I don't know who she is. I never met her before. Wants to always go after the billionaire person, right? And I hate to say that I didn't read the article. I won't read it. I don't read BS. I don't need to read that. But everyone's entitled to their opinion.
Thank you, sir. And there were some issues I saw in the report regarding audit division. I think there were 201 instances of non-compliance, and that MEI GSR provided adequate responses. Have there been any other future non-compliance issues for the audit division? If anybody can speak to that, please.
No, going back, and I think the history when we first purchased Grand Sierra, we had issues. There's no question. We had an OSC on it. We stepped up tremendously. The reports back I'm getting from GCB members have been very positive. In fact, I personally take it very personally myself. I'm not a gaming expert. I'm the overall CFO, but I got involved with the casinos where I'm actually involved in the compliance meetings. I'm on the compliance program that was mandated as part of the purchase of Sahara. I personally make sure every month, every week, that we're doing as much as we can for compliance, not just in the gaming areas, but what I've said is we want a culture of compliance. So we look at when we have exception reports, whether it's a restaurant, rooms, anywhere, we want all the people to be complying. So So it's very, very important to us. And no, I don't think we have anything major. I think we had 7 violations on the last reported GSR. I think we've made very positive results.
But in all fairness, Mr. Stoller is correct. I mean, when I took over GSR, it was in shambles. Literally, it was within weeks of closing it down completely. There was no accounting system. It was a complete disaster. And I'm not using excuses. We fixed it, and during that process, you're going to make mistakes, and of course, you're going to find a lot of things that we didn't expect. The same thing happened with the SLS. It was a disaster. You guys know the story very well, and who you licensed, who you approved, and we had to fix that up and turn around, and we've done that. I believe we've been in complete compliance, and I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud that we're working very closely with the organization and making sure we hold the highest standards possible in Nevada in your gaming board.
And you should be proud. I think there's a huge disparity with 201 compliance issues previously, and as you just cited, the number is 7 now. And so that is something to be said, and I just wanted that on the record to ensure that there's the forward moving in a positive direction compliance.
And if I could even comment further, I mean, I hate to comment on the article. I have read it, and there were significant inaccuracies. I take it personally because there was even an allegation in there about financial improprieties and reporting. No, I don't stand for that. I tell people that work for us finance, I want them bothered if we're off a buck. You know, that could be million one way, 999, the other way. No, I mean, that was one item among many inaccuracies in that report. That was, an anonymous letter somebody wrote, whatever. But,
and I will also comment, again, I'm saying things I shouldn't be saying, but I take it very personal. That when these allegations were made by who knows who, I have a feeling I knew who they were, but the NHL board and commission in the offices have a duty to go over, review everything, and they found absolutely nothing. And if it would have found something, it would have been public.
I do appreciate. I understand there are very different levels of journalism, nationally, internationally. My mother was a journalist for Radio Free Europe, very different level. And I just wanted to give you the opportunity to come before us today to explain that, because it was something that I reviewed and it just came to my attention. So I do appreciate the very insightful and meaningful and genuine responses.
And another thing, I'm surprised you haven't asked me. They keep repeating that I have a island in the country of Spain. I do not have an island, and that's also fake false reporting. There's so much false reporting about me that I don't even bother reading anymore. What for?
It's a sign of success.
There you go.
So, and speaking of success, it seems like you've really turned things around. Can you tell me how the convention business is going?
The convention business at the Sahara has really picked up in the third, fourth, and into 2022. And we've got a lot of advanced bookings, and it's really encouraging to see, especially with the convention center right next to us on the north end of the strip. And the neighborhood is improving, and that convention business is going to be really strong for us. We have to balance that convention business out with the casino guest as well. Because the casino business at the Sahara is really improving. So we got a good mix and a good balance of the mix into the third and fourth quarter of 21 and into 22.
And when is the construction of the pool going to be completed?
The construction of the pool will be done sometime in August. We were hoping to hit the summer, but there's been some delays. It's going to be a fabulous pool.
I've heard wonderful things.
Yeah, it's the perfect size. It's not too big, not too small. Great amenities. It is a dead on right fit for the property and for the and for that end of the strip. It's a great addition.
And then you're also adding 4 new restaurants.
That's correct. 4 new restaurants. 3 of them. Restaurant Row opens up to Las Vegas Boulevard. There'll be a Chickies and Pete's from Philadelphia. A bar experience, lounge and bar experience, an Italian restaurant, Ballo, with Sean McLean, famous chef, and then a noodle den by a gentleman here in Las Vegas, the Noodle Man. And then we're redoing the cafe as well. The cafe will open up in the next month or so. So 4 new restaurants. And then we're anchored, of course, by Bazaar Meats, Jose Andres. We're very fortunate to have Jose Andres at the property.
All right.
Yeah.
I very much appreciate the affirmative presentation. Mr. Murillo, I thank you for taking the time. I know you're extremely busy. You have so many endeavors to come before us and to answer these questions, to give you the opportunity to be heard. I think it's very important to have a clear record.
All right.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Commissioner.
I had a couple follow-up questions, and they're not really questions, they're mostly comment, but one does come down to a question. And you hit on 2 things that are really close to me, and that is charity, involvement in the community, being a charitable person. That is important. And I think you hit on that companies do get involved and you do contribute to charities. I think that's really, really important. And I think that's a high mark for anybody who is an owner or in management to do those things. The second thing is employees and
team members. I call them team members.
Yeah,
they're my family.
And I've got to tell you, I was in the hotel business a little back in the day, and I can tell you that a successful operation is built on the back of the employees. They're the backbone of the whole thing. If you can be the smartest guy out there in the world, but if you don't have the backing of the employees, you're not going anywhere. How would you describe your relationship with your employees? For the management and yourself, how do you interact with them? What are the things that you do for your employees?
I would love for somebody else to speak on my behalf. Why don't you guys speak on you guys can, you've known me for long enough. What do you can tell?
I'm trying to think. I've been with the company now with Alex for 12 years. And we interact. Like, one of the allegations, the thing was that, he got mad somebody demanded to be called Mr. Morello. He'd probably get mad if people started calling him Mr. Morello outside of formal, presentation. He's Alex. Anybody who sees him, any team member can talk with him, stop him on the floor. He will stop and talk with them. We're a group. We're not as structured as a lot of large companies. We're a group of people all working for a common goal, and we feel that it's not like, oh, okay, we've got to get this structure and bureaucracy, whatever. It's Alex and the family working together. Alex is very charitable, works with everybody, whether, team member or the community. Great environment, great successful environment that you feel an energy, a vibe.
Very good.
I'll tell you one more thing real quick. I'm very proud of this because when I first started at GSR, again, 11 years ago, I was told two things by other casino owners. And that's why when I said what I said a little while ago, is because I take it very passionately, right? I was told two things. One is I wouldn't last a year. They were wrong. And two is I would never make it. I'm number one. So that speaks for itself. But you know what? It wasn't because of me. I put up the money, but my team members put up the hard work. They put up the hard work. Without them, I wouldn't be here, period. So when I got to GSR 11 years ago, the housekeepers were making $7.25 an hour. Today, they make $18 plus tips of $3 more. So they're very comparable to Las Vegas wages. Every time they see me, they just cry.
Very good. All right.
So just one small story. To me, those low-level employees, to me, are the most, you call them employees, I call them team members. They're the most important part of who I am.
Very good. Thank you. I'm glad that you put that on the record because I had heard similar things about you. So that's very good. I don't have any questions. I'll see if my fellow commissioners and colleagues want to make a motion or have other follow-up questions.
I was just curious, where's your foundation housed out of? What building?
Downey. Right now it's currently, so we have several foundations. The one right now we're really focusing on is in Downey, but we also have Arizona and we also have Nevada. So we have really three states: California, Nevada, and Arizona. And all three of them are very close to me. I favor Nevada quite a bit. I shouldn't say that, but to me, Nevada is very important to me.
That's a good thing to say today. And I was just curious if you were charging your daughter more rent for those offices than you were charging her predecessor.
No.
I don't have anything further.
Were you surprised when I requested that you come down in person?
Yes, I was. But you know what? I'm happy I'm here. Because I don't get a chance to really, I'm very private. I don't speak very often. I try and stay away from the limelight because of those articles. And so it's a chance to say hi to you guys. And I appreciate you asking me, even though I haven't slept very much. I'm only on a couple hours sleep, but I don't care. It's nice to be here. Really in front of you guys.
We wanted to see you. Some of the commission wanted to see you in person. It was time to do that. So.
It was. It's been too long. Too long.
All right. Well,
and by the way, I'm sure you'll see me again. There'll be other projects, so I'm sure you're going to see me again.
All right. All right. Do we have a motion or any other comments by the commission?
I have no comments. I just wanted to thank you again. I know you're very busy, and I did think it was very important I'm the person who called you here because I haven't met you, and I always think it's a good idea to have two sides of a story. And so I think you've taken a very good position today in terms of giving us your genuine thoughts, and you seem very passionate, and it's just nice to have you and to get your side of the story.
Just remember, don't believe everything you read.
I don't. That's why I asked. That's why I asked for your presence today. So I think it was important. So I just wanted you to know that was me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
And I'm prepared to make a motion unless anybody has. Thank
All right.
you. Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of non-restricted item number 5 as recommended by the Gaming Control Board as read into the record by Madam Secretary.
Very good, Commissioner Brown. Any discussion on the motion?
No.
All right, we're prepared for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimously passes. Nice to see
Thank you
you.
for being
Thank you
here.
very much. Thank you very. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you very
Good luck
much.
to you.
I'm glad you brought your daughter so she could watch her dad and be
No,
proud.
And my son. So my daughter and my son, they're both back.
Well,
All
thank
right,
you both for coming.
very
Thank you.
good.
Thank you.
All right, I think we're going to take, I hate to do this. I used to sit out there and every time I'd been sitting all morning and I just about ready to come to my item, the darn chairman would ask for a recess and I'd have to wait longer. So we're going to be in a short recess and some of the commission wants to be in 5 minutes and let's make it 10. Let's come back at 25 after the hour and we'll get to the non-restricted or restricted. All right, thank you. Okay,
I think Steve knows the number.
What number?
We'll talk later.
Okay.
all right.
Steve does
All
not-
right, go ahead.
Okay, our next item is restricted item number 7, which is the application of Molino Ltd. For a transfer of interest and the applications of Michael Mongoloit for licensure as a member and manager and to pledge his membership interest as noted on the agenda. The recommendation of the Gaming Control Board is for approval, and I believe we do have a recusal on this item.
All right, very good then.
Oh, yes.
We have an applicant and an attorney.
I have a recusal, Chair Moran. This is my esteemed colleague, Mary Tran, from the law firm of Lewis Roca, and she's, I'm sure, going to do a fabulous job, but I must recuse myself because clearly I can't vote, so I'll step into the next room.
All right, very good then. Good morning. Would you like to make a record?
Yes, good afternoon, Chair Moran, Commissioner Cohen, Commissioner Solis Rainey, and Madam Secretary. My name is Mary Tran with the law firm Lewis Roca. To my right is the applicant, Michael Mongio. Before you today is a transfer of interest application where the Vento Family Trust would like to transfer 49% of its interest in Molino Ltd. To Mr. Mongio. And the transaction also includes a promissory note where Mr. Mongio will pledge his interest in Molino back to the Vento Family Trust. And with your permission, we would like Mr. Mongio to give a brief background of himself, and then we would be happy to answer any questions.
Very good. And then pull the mic down so you guys can speak into him. We can really hear you well. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairman Moran, Commission, Madam Secretary. My name is Michael Mongio. I am currently the General Manager of Molino Ltd. DBA Ventano, and have been there for the last 16 years and have finally had the opportunity to buy into what I love to do. That's run this restaurant.
Very, very good. I have a lot of history going back in the day with Mr. Vento. So when you see him again, tell him I said hello. And I'm sorry about his wife passing away. I think I did his very first licensing many, many years ago, but I haven't seen him in many years. Be sure and tell him hello. Yeah, you gave us a history, and you've never been licensed before.
No,
We don't have any areas of concern whatsoever on this, but if for first-time licensing, we always like to have the person in front of us so we can kind of look at each other and get to know each other. I see that you're buying 49%, okay, from the trust, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then the partner in that will be Mr. Brion?
Yes.
Okay. And you've worked with him, obviously. You've been, I think, with Mr. Vento, what, about 15 years, 10 years?
Yes, sir. Been with them almost 16 years.
Right.
And I work hand in hand daily with Mr. Brion. He's the on-site owner, if you would like to say.
Right.
And but I have a great relationship with both of them. Have since day one.
All right. Well, very good. I looked at the way that you're financing this, and I see that the number on this, but I know that you're putting your money where your mouth is, so to speak. You got personal savings and a family gift, and then you signed with a promissory note, correct? Is that the way that works out?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very, very good. Well, I didn't have any real questions. Like I said, I wanted to see, you and hear about your relationship. And I had seen from my materials that you really worked your way up, and that by virtue of the hard work you put in there, running this and never licensed before, you got an opportunity to really have your own business there. So that's pretty commendable. So, let me see if my fellow commissioners have any questions. May not have any.
I don't have any questions with the transaction. I mean, great restaurant. I always enjoy when I can get in to dine there. So congratulations.
It is a good restaurant. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm looking for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to make a motion for approval of restricted item number 7 as read into the record by Madam Secretary and recommended by the Gaming Control Board.
Very, very good. All right. Well, we have a motion. Any discussion? Not seeing any. I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. All right. Motion passes. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
It's nice to see somebody who puts in that kind of work and gets a chance to be involved in the business and own a piece of it. So congratulations and good luck.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next item, Madam Secretary.
Next item is restricted number 8, which is the application of R&R Convenience Inc. for a transfer of interest and the application of Duluth Santa Croce for licensure as a shareholder. The recommendation of the Gaming Control Board is for approval. I believe we have a disclosure on this item.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Do we have a disclosure?
Thank you very much, Chair Moran. I do have a disclosure to make. Joseph Donato is adverse in a matter handled by Lewis Roque, the firm where I am a partner in which I am not personally involved. I have no pecuniary interest in the outcome of this agenda item, and I do not believe the independence of judgment of a reasonable person in my position would be affected by the relationship described on the record, and I therefore intend to participate. Deputy Attorney General Brian Ake, is this disclosure satisfactory under NRS 281A420 and in compliance with the disclosure requirements?
Yes, it is, Commissioner.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. Very good then. Good morning.
Good afternoon, Chairman
Yep,
Moran,
here all day.
members of the commission, Madam Secretary. It's a pleasure to appear before you in person, not be struggling to try to unmute my microphone. To my left is the applicant, Dulcie Santa Croce. The application is a transfer of interest. If you approve it today, she will receive 1/2 of the shares held in R&R Convenience Inc. by her former spouse, Joseph Donato. These shares were awarded to her more than once through a series of divorce decrees that were amended, but it is only now after she came to us and sought gaming advice that we've come before you with this application. She's never appeared before you before, but there were no areas of concern or issues with her application, and she's certainly happy to answer any questions you might have.
All right, very good. Well, I read all the materials, and like your counsel said, you haven't never been here before, and you're here now. I want to hear a little bit about your history and what you think about if this and when it gets approved, what you're going to do with it. I think I saw that you were going to be kind of a passive role, I guess, but as a passive investor, I wrote down in my notes. But tell me a little bit about yourself briefly and what you intend to do.
Okay. First of all, I've been in nursing almost 50 years. So if I do get approved, this was always going to be part of my retirement. And I started out in nursing when I was in high school. So I gave up half of my childhood to get my LPN degree. And then I limped through to my RN, to my BSN, to my master's. And then at the age of 60, my doctorate. So nursing is all I really know. Yeah, it was a long haul. It was hard work, but it was well worth it. I do a lot of charity work out in the community. I do a lot for the homeless. So January, I go out and I count the homeless. And then I also do dental fairs for the homeless through the Salvation Army. And I do a lot of volunteer work for the church that I belong to with kids, and I'm always volunteering. I don't know how to say no. That's my problem.
Very good. I'm glad you came down here and shared that with us. I was watching TV last night, and they had a nurse on one of the popular news channels, and they were interviewing her about her nursing, things that she did during the COVID, and they were referring to her as a hero and a frontline protector. It was very interesting. I see from your materials that you as well were involved in nursing. You worked a long ways and got to court way too many times. And you're now here in front of us, and it's looking pretty good. So thank you for coming down. Let me see if anybody here has any. We only have 6 slots there, right? Is that what we're talking about? Yeah. Okay. All right. All right. Commissioner Rosa?
I didn't have any questions. I mean, it's been a long trek for you to get here. Your application otherwise just didn't raise any concerns for me, but I did want to thank you for your service. I mean, 50 years of nursing is a long haul, and you look wonderful. So thank you for all your years of helping the community, and both with the nursing and your community service. I didn't have any questions with regards to the application.
When I looked through it, like Commissioner Solis Rainey said, what came to mind is that saying that winners quitters never win. You just kept plugging away.
I did. It's really been a long haul.
Pretty incredible. Commissioner Cohen, anything? Commissioner Brown?
I just have a couple of quick questions. I'm not understanding why the amended divorce decree that was entered in November 1st, 2011 took so long to get filed in terms of a stipulation. And maybe this is a quick question for you, counsel. It was, I think, January 29th, 2018. Can you tell me what happened in the interim?
Unfortunately, I'm not a divorce lawyer and I wasn't involved in those proceedings.
You know why it took so long?
Well, for one thing is during the whole process, my ex totally destroyed my credit. And I was working, to me, that was really important because I needed to purchase a home. And so I tried cleaning up my credit first and one thing at a time, and attorneys cost money. And I was working 2 and 3 jobs just to pay for attorney fees and getting my house and keeping my kids in college.
Understood. It took time. I get it.
Yeah.
And then also, is it my understanding, is it accurate that Mr. Donato still owes you $19,081.40 from his future distributions that need to be satisfied?
Yes.
And do you have a charging order against the company R&R to pay you his distributions so they don't go to him, instead they go to you?
Not yet.
Okay.
That's the next step.
Okay.
My understanding is that has been discussed with litigation counsel. to
Good.
take
I
that the
just want
next
to make
step.
sure.
Mhm.
I have absolutely no reservations. And again, I echo the sentiments of Commissioner Solis Rainey and the chair in your wonderful service to the community. I mean, 50 years almost is commendable. So thank you for that.
Thank
You're a
you.
good soul, I can tell.
Thank you.
Commissioner Brown, would you like to make a motion?
Happy to make a motion. Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of restricted item number 8 as recommended by the Gaming Control Board as read into the record, Madam Secretary.
Oh, very good. Not seeing any discussion. For the vote, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Unanimously passes.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Keep fighting the good fight. Don't give up.
I won't.
Good luck. All right, next item.
Next item is restricted number 10, which is the application of LS&I LLC for licensure to receive a percentage of revenue from Century Gaming Technologies doing business at 7-Eleven store 26627, and the application of Sonic Shams for licensure as sole member and manager of LS&I LLC. The recommendation of the Gaming Control Board is for approval.
All right.
Good morning.
Good. Good to
Well,
see
good
you, Mr.
afternoon.
Donato. Always see your client's never been licensed, so why don't you introduce us?
Correct.
Your record.
Good morning. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, Madam Secretary Jeff Donato here of Argentum. With me today is the applicant, Ms. Shams. We understand there were no areas of concern with her application, but with your permission, I'd like to allow her some time to give some background information about herself.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sunika. I'm originally from Afghanistan. I've been living in the US for a long time. I started college in California for billing and coding. I have a UPS store that's up and running for 4 years. I just purchased a 7-Eleven and here I am.
Good. How did you end up coming to this country? I know you were with UPS for a long time here.
Yes.
You as well as the last applicant, you guys worked really hard to end up in front of the commission. Tell me a little bit how you left and arrived here.
Oh, got married to the US citizen and then I moved to United States. Yeah.
Okay. And are you can have 5 gaming devices at that location? You have a space, correct?
I am on a space lease now, yes.
Correct.
Would you like to weigh in on that?
Yeah, for clarification purposes, she's been operating the store currently right now under a space lease, and upon approval, if we're approved, that will convert to a participation agreement where she will get a share in the gaming revenue.
Okay, very good, very good. All right, do we have any questions? No.
I just commend you as a single mom. I know you've been a single mother since 2009 and you're taking on a huge business endeavor. And I know you're working probably 50 to 60 hours a week. And I think you said at the board level that you were spending about 10% of your time with the UPS and devoting most of your energy to the 7-Eleven. So
Right.
good luck. I have no reservations and no questions.
Thank you so much.
All right, do we have a motion?
Sure, Mr. Chairman. I move for approval of restricted item number 10 as read into the record by Madam Secretary and recommended by the Gaming Control Board.
Thank you, Commissioner Salzman. We have no discussion on the motion. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Say
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimously passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming down here today with us and visiting, and good luck on your new venture. It's always good to see you, Mr. Donato. Thank you. All right. All right, next item.
Next item is restricted number 14, which is the application of United Coin Machine Company doing business as Century Gaming Technologies, doing business at USA Lounge for a restricted gaming license. The recommendation of the Gaming Control Board is for approval.
All right, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, fellow commissioners, Madam Secretary. For the record, I am Tim Cogswell. I'm the Vice President and General Manager at Century Gaming Technologies here in Nevada. Stepping in for Ms. Richardson, who recently just got remarried and is sending me pictures from Hawaii as we speak. So I said come down and answer any questions you may have for our application.
Right. The reason I didn't put this as consent is I really had some issues with the prior individual that was involved in this, Mr. Heck was his name, Mr. McMacken. I wanted to know how your company got involved in this. What's the status of Mr. McMacken at this location? And, hopefully doesn't have any real role in this, and how you guys got involved in this. That's
Correct.
That's
Yeah.
where I'm at.
Yeah, sure. So our direct involvement was back, it was conversation started during the shutdown during the pandemic. They approached us in regards to wanting to entertain how to get gaming into their location at USA Lounge, which they hadn't had during that time. And we understood during our due diligence and background as well, Mr. McMacken's history, the years past with non-restricted licensees and all that. Doing our due diligence, that was one of our biggest things. Who's going to be operating the location? And from day one and up till today, the plan is he will not have day-to-day operation involvement, especially when it comes to the gaming side. They will be, and they're in the process right now of finding of who's that lead manager is going to be once the location is still dark right now. And they're planning on looking at September, possibly October to reopen. And during this process is finding that direct person who will be the day-to-day operator and manager of the location. He'll still be the owner. I'm sure he'll have business decisions, but when it comes to the gaming, that's what they brought us forward for, to go forward with the space lease. So we will be involved with those operations and gaming decisions.
The gaming hasn't been there for quite a while. I think it was 1996. Is that possible?
Mr. Chairman, I'd have to check back on when the
I
last
was
time
just
it was
curious.
active.
That's what I had in my notes, and I wasn't sure about that. But I wanted to make sure that Mr. McMacken has nothing to do with it.
Nope. And that was part of our agreement with them in regards to who's going to be operating the location, especially involved with the gaming.
Do you have a comfort level with the documentation and in light of my concerns about him,
yes,
that he's not going to be around there or be involved in any aspect?
We do. Yep.
Okay, that'd be real problematic.
Understood.
Okay.
Understood.
Well, I didn't have any other questions. I just wanted to talk to you about him.
Yep.
And make sure that we practice social distancing there, so to speak.
Yeah. And one key point.
That was a good one.
One key point of that too is, the location has been dark, it's been closed. And part of our discussions with them before gaming can go live, we have our expectations and what we expect out of our partners as a licensee or not with gaming to go live, and asking them and requiring them to go through that location, clean it up, and make it what we expect them to be, to host gaming and have gaming live. And that includes not only physically the location, but the bartenders, the management, whoever's going to be there operating it to make sure it stands to our standards.
All right, very good. I appreciate that. I don't have any other questions. I don't know if we don't have any. Do we have a motion maker? Commissioner Cohen?
I'd move for approval of restricted item number 14 as set forth in the record read into it by Madam Secretary.
All right, I don't see any discussion. A motion is made. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No opposed. Okay, it passes unanimously. Thank you for coming down today and putting that on the record.
Thank you for your time. Good to see you again.
Important. Thank
And
you.
please
Have a good day.
congratulate Miss Richardson for me.
He's got enough of that, so I think we're good.
All right, Madam Secretary.
That brings us to your complaints. For your consideration, you have 2 stipulations for settlement and order. Item number 1 is settling the complaint filed in the matter of the Nevada Gaming Control Board versus MGNB LLC doing business as Mohegan Sun Casino Las Vegas, case number 21-01.
All right. Good afternoon, Mr. Rubenstein. I'm seeing an awful lot of you is all I can tell you.
I always think that is a good thing.
I think I understand that completely.
Generally, not real excited about dealing with a complaint, but I am proud of the way my client responded to it. I don't know if you wanted to hear from Mr. Michaela first before we responded.
I can, if I think I would like to have Mr. Michaela go first if we could.
Sure.
And then you can put on the record who's with you, and Mr. Michaela can lay out the complaint for us and work his magic.
That'd be great. Thank you.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Chair. And good afternoon, Chair Moran, members of the Commission, Madam Secretary, members of the Board. For the record, I'm John McKella of the Attorney General's Office. I have a stipulation for your consideration that settles the complaint filed by the Board against MGNB LLC, DBA Mohegan Sun Casino, Las Vegas. This complaint flows from the failure of Mohegan Sun to require people it invited onto its premises during its grand opening events for promotion purposes to wear masks in accordance with the COVID requirements in place at the time. Mohegan Sun did ensure other patrons and its employees wore masks in accordance with the COVID requirements. The complaint also sets out some failures of Mohegan Sun regarding enforcing social distancing requirements in place at the time. Through the settlement, Mohegan Sun admits to the violations as alleged in the complaint. The settlement resolves the complaint by Mohegan Sun agreeing to pay a fine in the amount of $60,000. This is the largest COVID-related fine against a single licensee and reflects that Mohegan Sun should have been on notice that the Board and Commission take COVID mitigation requirements seriously, and that Mohegan Sun should not have treated people it invited to its premises for promotion purposes differently than its employees and other patrons. That is my presentation on this issue for you today. If you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them. Otherwise, I ask the Commission to approve the stipulation for settlement. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Let me at this point ask the Commission if they have any questions for Mr. Michaela on the complaint or the settlement. None? Okay.
I do.
Oh,
I do. Mr. Michaela, how did you arrive at the $60,000?
Thank you, Commissioner Cohen. It was based on a few things, obviously discussion with the Board because they're the client and the ultimate decision makers here. But it was a significant issue because it was only these paid celebrity promoters who were not wearing masks. So that was both an aggravating factor and also a mitigating factor in the fact that all the Mohegan Sun's employees and other patrons were wearing masks. And then it was the limited number of patrons, these celebrities that weren't wearing masks, but also that there had been COVID fines before. And as I said, this is the biggest fine against a single licensee. There was the Sahara and GSR that was jointly settled that was bigger, but this is the biggest one against a single licensee.
Thank you, Mr. Michaela.
Any other questions? Any questions for Mr. Michaela?
Not for Mr.
Okay. All right, Mr. Michaela, thank you. And just stand by and we'll now hear Mark.
Thank you. Mark Rubenstein, again with Reed Rubenstein and Bogatz on behalf of the respondent. Appearing with me today are Ray Pino, who you just licensed as Chief Executive Officer of the parent company, Mohegan Gaming and Entertainment. To my right, Joe Hassan, who you've licensed as General Manager of Mohegan Sun Casino, Las Vegas. And behind me, to my left, is Mark Camella, who's the Vice President and Chief Compliance Officer for Mohegan Gaming and Entertainment. To add on to Mr. Michaela's remarks about the amount, it was a negotiated amount. We felt and had submitted some argument that the fine based on precedent, and particularly with the SLS being multiple locations and multiple violations over multiple days, and ours being one location, one night, a handful of celebrities plus the distancing thing, actually mitigated against a much lower fine. the board came back and asked for a higher amount. And again, not wanting to have this belabor our presence in the state of Nevada, particularly at the beginning of the operations, agreed with the amount that the board requested. So that's where we are today, and we would ask that you vote to approve the stipulation.
Right, and you know, one thing for me that really mitigates and it really has to do a lot with what you just said is the proposition that new licensee here in Nevada, no pushback whatsoever against the stipulation and acknowledgement of wrongdoing. And but for a lot of celebrities not paying attention and on a busy evening, you know, those are all things I look at in terms of the number that you and the Attorney General's office have agreed to. I think it's a fair number, but I just wanted to mention that, and that's a long ways away from some of the complaints that we saw during this horrible period of time of the COVID, where there was outright defiance out there and continual violations, and you couldn't get people's attention. But you guys ponied up, so to speak, and everything went well. So I think that's a good number. I think you did some good work there with the Attorney General's office. But having said that, I'm going to turn to my colleagues, Commissioner Solis Rainey.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm sure this is less than ideal for you to have to be before us on a complaint so soon after your successful opening. And I did want to comment. I was at your opening, and I thought generally, at least during the time that I was there, everybody was doing a very good job with compliance. I was out in the I don't know what it's called, the garden area, where the stage was. Yeah, I was out there, and you know, people had their mask off while they were eating, but generally there was good compliance. It was packed, so the casino was difficult to get through and maintain social distancing. I left fairly early because of that, but generally I thought you were doing a good job. And you know, unfortunately, this other issue arose probably later, and I appreciate, as I believe others said, that you've taken responsibility for the violations, and also for recognizing that the board has done an outstanding job in addressing the COVID-related issues. They've done so in a firm manner, but in an even-handed manner, and I appreciate you recognizing that. I think that says a lot about the company's character, and you know, I'd like to move forward from it. You mentioned that you had taken remedial action. You know, obviously the protocols have changed since then, but could you tell me a little bit about what you're doing currently for your COVID efforts?
Joe, why don't you go ahead and do
Thank you. Joe Hassan, General Manager at Mohegan Sun Casino, Las Vegas. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Commissioner Solis Rainey. First thing that we did was we said we had some training programs that I've mentioned to this commission previously during testimony that I know as a classroom trainer and as an instructor that what happens in a classroom and what happens in real life are often different. And I knew that immediately we needed reinforcement of that training. Now, does it still apply today? I want to tell you that it does. And the most important takeaway today is that people are empowered to cause compliance to take place. If I were to look backwards on this and say, what could I have done that was better before it took place? It would have been the reemphasis of we all own compliance and we all have an obligation to act on it immediately. That's the shortcoming that I was caught in. The training was good training. The practice, perhaps as you saw, was good practice. We got caught in what I would describe as a brief period of time where inattention and lack of focus involving select people amongst us got away from us. And that's where I know that as an instructor, a trainer, and a leader of people, my job is to remind people continuously that we all own the training. And in this case, we all own the compliance.
Okay, thank you. How's your property doing with its vaccination efforts?
From a vaccination point of view, we have a number of people that are still, a number of our team who are still moving about with masks on. Our rules of engagement, so to speak, for our workforce, and this includes both Virgin Hotels as well as Mohegan Sun Casino at the location. If a team member has not voluntarily shared with us that they have been vaccinated and appropriate waiting time post-vaccination has occurred, they are obligated to continue to wear a mask until such time as they demonstrate to us appropriate documentation of vaccination. I believe we are now north of about 55% of the full workforce that is vaccinated. I would need to double check that number to be up to date and be confident to state that as a fact. I'm counting on something that I've heard previously, and very few members of our team still wear masks, but I respect their rights to choose how it is that they conduct their medical affairs personally. If they choose not to be vaccinated, our response to that is, until such time as you demonstrate to us vaccination records, you must continue to wear a mask while on duty.
I appreciate that. Are you either, I guess, do you have any efforts to do any company-wide vaccinations? Are you doing clinics on site, or are you leaving it up to them to? I mean, it's a lot easier now, but I don't know what your efforts have been in that regard.
We have done clinics on site, and we've made available time for people to, if they choose to now continue or pursue vaccination at this point in time, the time is available for them to do that. We are forgiving appropriately in terms of attendance matters. If someone, as a result of vaccination, says they have the after the fact illness or concern that would cause them not to work, there is no attendance consequence of that because we are forgiving of that. Understandably so. That's been our practice since the beginning of vaccination availability.
Okay, thank you. And I think it goes without saying that, obviously the health and welfare of all of our guests in the state and the employees of our licensees is of the utmost importance to us. And although the COVID situation is much improved, I think it's constantly changing. So I think it's important that licensees remain vigilant and prepared to react to, whatever new developments may come down the pike. I also think that, the employees are only going to take their compliance and safety efforts as seriously as the leadership. So it's important that the priority and the importance of them maintaining compliance with protocols has to start at the top. And I think you've done that. I mean, I've seen nothing to suggest anything different. So, I'm comfortable with your response. Again, I really appreciated Mr. Pino taking responsibility, the efforts that the company took. And I think it's something we can move from. I would turn it over to my colleagues to see if they have any additional questions, but thank you for your responses.
Thank you, Commissioner Solis Rainey. Commissioner Cohen?
Yes, sir. First of all, I share on my colleague's statements that this could have been a lot worse. But for, in the Game Control Board here, Mr. Pino, as I said earlier in your licensing, you owned it. It happened, you owned it. And the salient thing that really I appreciated, you took down the social media. The social media convicted you, but likewise, you were saying this needs to get off right away, or whenever someone, saw it. So there was no intent, to flaunt violations. It was, the grand opening. These things happen. It doesn't mean you're not going to be called on the carpet for it, but you are. But I think what Mr. Rubenstein was able to negotiate with the board is fair and equitable under the circumstances, and I'm fully prepared to support the recommended settlement.
Thank you, Commissioner.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Let me ask Mr. McCullough, do you have any follow-up?
I don't, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
All right, very good. Miss, do you have any?
No, I do not. Thank you. Just
okay. All right, Mr. Rubenstein, thank you. All right, I guess we're prepared for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would move for approval of the settlement, the stipulation for settlement and order as provided to us. I don't know if there's a draft. It's the only draft that I have. So I would move for approval of that and to authorize you to sign it on behalf of the commission.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. I can certainly support that for all the reasons I previously said. Good lawyering on both sides. I think we have an equitable result in settlement here for all the reasons we articulated. Got a great company. I don't expect to see you guys back in front of me forever. Okay, unless it's for approval of some other person of your stature. So I can support that motion. So I think I'll call for the vote unless there's any further discussion.
No further discussion.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Petitions. Good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Good luck. All right, I guess we have one more, Madam Secretary.
That is correct. Item number 2 is settling the complaint filed in the matter of Nevada Gaming Control Board. This is LV Station Management Inc. doing business as Country Clubs Auto Spa and Ali Pordaston, case number 21-02.
Okay, good afternoon.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. I'm Ed McGaugh with the Attorney General's Office. I'm here today representing the Nevada Gaming Control Board. Can't remember the name of my client. In this matter read into the record.
Who's your client again? I can't remember.
Something with board, like the wildlife board. No.
I like that. Okay, very good.
And the representatives from the licensee are here as well. I'll let them introduce themselves.
All right, very good.
Preston Howard on behalf of the licensee. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Madam Secretary. With me is Ali Pordaston, who is the owner and subject of the
All right, very good.
license complaint.
Mr. McGaugh, did you want to lead off?
Yes, if it pleases the chair, I'd like to give a brief synopsis of the complaint, as well as go into details on how we arrived at the settlement agreement amount.
Excellent, thank you.
For you today is a stipulation for settlement that settles the disciplinary complaint filed by the Nevada Gaming Control Board against licensees, read into the record by Madam Secretary. If it pleases, the basis for the complaint is it comes down to a lack of adequate supervision of the location and the failure to file a key employee application as required by a condition on the license. Through an investigation by Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, it was discovered that an employee of the location working the overnight shift alone sold small amounts of meth while on duty. And again, he was selling it, from what we understand, to support his own personal habit. This is very small quantities. It wasn't, as the paper portrayed, any kind of Breaking Bad situation or a large scheme operation. This is one rogue employee acting alone. There's no evidence the owner was aware of it or profiting from it, or that any other employees were involved in the sale of the drugs. In addition to the illegal drug sales, Metro cited the location for the following violations. There was a cashier in possession of an illegal firearm, and that was the person that was selling the drugs. He apparently had a felony on his record and could not lawfully possess the firearm. At no time was this, it was hidden, it wasn't used on any customers or anybody at the location. They were also cited for failure to maintain a required employee list under county ordinance, and the cashier did not possess a TAM card as required. In addition, the licensee, as I mentioned, did not submit a key employee report to the board and hasn't done so since March of 2017. From what I understand, there have been 2 key employees at the location since the initial key employee, and they have not complied with that. And this appears to be an oversight on their part, because with the county, they did submit key employee applications. They just did not do it with the board for some reason. Taking all of the violations into consideration and their scope, comparing them to similar cases in the past, and factoring the criteria set forth in NGC Regulation 7.240, the board believes that a $10,000 fine is appropriate for the situation. Here are some of the factors that the board considered. This is the first disciplinary action against the licensee. He has been a good licensee. There has been no indication that he is a problem licensee. The licensee has been incredibly cooperative with the board in the investigation. He even voluntarily shut down the 5 slot machines at the location, even though not required to or requested to, pending the outcome of the investigation. So shortly after all of this came to light, he shut down the gaming at the location. And again, there is no evidence the licensee participated or profited from this operation. And he certainly didn't condone it, or there's no indication that he actively encouraged it. Or I imagine if he had been aware of it, he would not have allowed this to go on. But unfortunately, that's the issue of the complaint. is his supervision of the property. Again, this involves one employee. There isn't a systemic problem, or at least there's no evidence of a systemic problem at the location. And again, it was for his own personal drug habits, and it was small scale sales, and they were concealed from the owner. A review of past cases involving similar violations at the level and scope described in the complaint made the board believe that a $10,000 fine is appropriate. Unlike other cases that have involved criminal activity, there is no unusual levels of calls of service at the location. This is a convenience store, so it appears to be the normal level of calls that you would expect of a convenience store. The owner, again, did not cater to any unsavory crowd of patrons, such as known gang members. We've seen in other cases where they're actively seeking out the clientele that could cause problems. No violent acts occurred at the location relating to the employee's conduct. Unlike other cases we've had, there's been gang fights or even the homicide, if you recall, in one case. And again, the drug sales were limited to one employee rather than a group of employees, which we've seen in other cases where we've had a more significant fine or a suspension or a revocation. And also the owner has taken remedial action to prevent similar situations like this in the future. Based on requirements by the Clark County business license, he has hired a security guard to work from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. every night with the cashier on duty. So the night shift cashier will not be working alone. So there'll be eyes on that cashier. Lastly, the failure to, and also on the patrons that come in at that hour. And lastly, the failure to file a key employee report, like we said, appears to be more of an administrative oversight on their part, not an attempt to circumvent the requirements of the condition. And again, this case comes down to whether or not, well, it comes down to one where the owner has failed to adequately supervise the location, which is serious. However, it does not rise to the same level as our past cases. So that's why the board, after careful and thorough consideration, given the totality of the circumstances, past cases, and the elements described in Regulation 7.240, the board believes the settlement amount of $10,000 would be appropriate. The board asks that the commission accept the stipulation for settlement as presented. And with that, I conclude my presentation and be happy to answer any questions.
All right, good presentation, Mr. McGaw. I appreciate you adding those different facts in there. It makes a great deal of difference, and it really kind of explains the state's case on that. I would ask if my fellow commissioners have any questions they want for Mr. McGaw before I heard from Mr. Howard.
I did, if you don't mind, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Mr. McGaw, is the employee that was involved in the drug sales the one that was living in the attic? You didn't reference that.
Oh yeah, so that employee living in the attic was a different employee. From what I understand, he was homeless at the time, and that but he is not accused of any other crime. It was more of a county ordinance of him living in the attic. And I don't believe the county business license, I can be corrected, actually cited them moved forward and prosecuted them for that charge.
Was there a second employee that had the outstanding warrants, or was this the same? There seemed to be three employees at issue, and I don't have it clear in my mind who's who.
I believe Mr. Howard can straighten that out, but I believe that maybe the second employee had outstanding warrants, or?
Yes.
Yeah, the second employee did have the outstanding warrants. Or was it?
Yeah, I can address it.
Yeah, I can't quite remember. I think he may have been the TAM card violator, but I'll let Mr. Howard explain.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions at this point? All right.
Not for you.
Oh, okay. Mr. Howard, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Commissioners, let me say, first of all, I'll address Ms. Solis-Rainey's questions. There were three employees involved. One bad guy who was the second shift cashier. He was a guy selling small amounts of meth, apparently was a user himself. Also had a gun, which is not a big surprise, I guess, for someone who's dealing drugs. Two other employees were taken into custody on that night. Neither one was arrested for anything. The one employee was found in the parking lot behind the premises. He was actually in the shopping center parking lot, but he was a car wash employee. I don't know if he was living in his car or what he was doing, but he was a car wash employee. He had some outstanding warrants for failure to appear, so they took him into custody. So that's the second one. The third one was the homeless guy who was also a car wash employee, who was apparently for the last several days prior to this incident, which was December 21st of 2020, had been living in we'll call it an attic area. It really wasn't an area intended to be an attic, but apparently he was up there when the Metro folks were there and they heard commotion in the ceiling or noises or whatever, and discovered this individual. So I think he was taken into custody. Neither of the second and third employees were charged, but obviously the guy who was selling drugs and was in possession of a firearm was charged.
May I
as a
ask
result.
just a follow-up question?
Certainly.
Which of those three had been submitted to the county as the
None of
key employee application?
None of those.
So it wasn't any
No, there's yeah.
other employees?
Yeah, it was other
Okay,
people.
got it.
Okay. There was a manager at the time who had been submitted to the county as a key employee. His application was in process, but was neither disapproved nor approved. But given this situation, he worked in the daytime primarily, and he's the guy responsible for hiring this second shift cashier who was the person who got arrested. So if I can, I'll go through with you what remedial arrangements were made with Clark County as a result of this, and maybe add a little bit myself one way or the other to help explain the situation. I'm one of those people that take the glasses off to read. So, but our primary manager at that time was a gentleman named Lance Stafford. Our first agreement with the county was that Mr. Stafford could continue to be employed, but only as the car wash manager, no longer responsible for hiring and firing of store employees or gas station employees. Second thing that we agreed to was that all employees would have TAM cards, and we would go through and make sure that they did at that time, which that was completed. We instituted a policy of background checks and drug tests for new employees. Secondly, that we would hire a new employee manager who would apply for key employee status. Third was that or fifth rather, sorry, was that the owner, Mr. Portistan, or his financial advisor, Taki Chaudhry, who's with us here in the audience today, would visit the property once a week. They both live in Southern California, to pay closer attention to what was going on at the business. Next item was that we would hire an armed guard and employ that guard to be on duty from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. That has been instituted. Next item was that access to the office that is part of the business premises would be restricted to only essential personnel being able to go in and out of the office. We also asked Metro to put one of their blue light, I don't know if you've ever seen those things, but they're motorized blue and red light towers on them. We asked them to put one of those in the shopping center parking lot that is behind this business, because it's kind of an area, it's a long stone's throw from an underpass for 215, and there's a propensity for homeless people to camp in underneath that underpass and so forth. And so the idea of the Metro red and blue lights there and the camera being there is kind of a discouragement for homeless people to be frequenting the area or hanging around in the shopping center parking lot. We also, the master list of employees existed. It's just that no one who was there at the time that Clark County was there had the ability to access the computer and print out the master list of employees. Second to last, we agreed if there was any violation involving police activity at the premises that we would report that to Clark County. There have been none. We agreed to these conditions at the end of the first week of January of 2021. And lastly was that there would be a 6-month administrative review. We're coming up on right now. No one has contacted me yet from the county, but we're certainly willing to go through that review. And just as a follow-up, we submitted 2 key employee applications with Clark County, and the new manager is in possession of the application materials to submit that to the board as well. He's working on it. I met with him about a week ago. He's still working, so he's not, not at liberty to just sit down and spend his time doing the application. Mr. Portistan is here if you have any questions. I would just borrowing the chairman's phrasing. I mean, we own this, and that's been our perspective throughout this. He understands and can tell you himself that he needed to pay a little more attention to business. This is not his primary business, and just to get rid of the Breaking Bad analogy that was borrowed for whoever writes for the Review Journal. He's an electrical engineer, and his primary business is building cell towers. He got into this business somewhat hesitantly, but he had lent money to a friend who was the prior owner of the business, and ended up in a situation where that guy's business was in decline. Not this particular business, but his general business was in decline, and he was unable to repay those loans. And so Mr. Portistan ended up basically taking over the business. That's how we got in the first place.
All right. Let me just interject here. Maybe we can get to where we need to be on this a little quicker. Going into this thing, I was looking for ways to make sure the license went away, and that the actions and things that occurred in here were very offensive. But after hearing from the Attorney General and also hearing from yourself as to some of these other factors, it seems like they do somewhat remediate, what has occurred here. I'm not so certain that he knows the seriousness of having a license. There's a lot of duties and responsibilities there. He's a long ways away from cell towers when he comes down here. So as his attorney, do you feel comfortable that he knows what he's doing as a licensee and understands that there's rules and things that have to be followed, or he's going to be a denied applicant or a revoked applicant? I mean, we're not playing games down here.
I would say, without a doubt, he certainly does now. I would say he paid less attention to business in terms of his overall financial situation. This business was a very minor contribution to his, economic wherewithal. But he understands the seriousness of it now.
He understands that this is a privilege, that he doesn't have a right to anything down there. He has a privilege that has been given to him if he follows the rules. And, coming in and saying, well, I should have done better, I didn't know this, or I could have, maybe I should have, it's the employees made me did it, the dog ate the homework. None of that's going to work down here.
Right.
If we give him a chance and we fine him, he has to understand that he has to act like a licensee and know what the rules are. Do you think he can do that?
Yeah, I understand now. That's how serious this license is. And that's why I immediately took off the machines from the place and hired a security guard to make sure that the night shift somebody's there to babysit the cashier.
Right. Do you think that you can follow the law down there?
Yeah.
When you see something that isn't right, you're going to report it.
Yeah.
Now that change it. You can ask your attorney. You got a great counsel.
Definitely.
You got a problem and you don't know, pick up the phone and call him.
That's what I do. Yeah.
You know what should I do? But we can't keep saying, well, it's the employees and we wish you would have done a better job. We can't keep letting you out there bouncing around. You gotta if you want to be in this business, and you gotta follow the law. Right?
Okay. Yes, sir.
All right. Any of my commissioners have any other thing? Commissioner Brown?
Thank you so much. This is a very serious matter. I appreciate you coming here to answer a question, and I do have some questions for you. Can you explain to me, before the incident that occurred in March of 2020, how often were you visiting the convenience store?
Twice a month.
Twice a month?
Yeah.
And since you have agreed to the conditions for you to come to visit the store once a week, have you been doing that since January
Yes,
2021?
7 to 8 days, like once.
And when you come, do you announce that you're coming, or do you have
No.
surprise visits?
No, it's a surprise visit.
Okay.
Nobody knows.
And do you know, did you ever interview employee number one, who's a convicted felon?
No.
Was that person in place when you acquired your interest in the company?
No,
No?
no, he wasn't, but he was hired by the then manager, who's no longer the manager.
Understood. And can you tell me where the stolen gun and the illegal narcotics and the scale, like how big was the scale? Where was it?
That I don't know.
I just don't know where these things were stored or placed.
Yeah, I
and-
think the scale was in the office, which explains why they wanted the access to the office to be limited. Is that right?
Yes, Commissioner. I believe that he carried it in a bag with him,
Oh.
and they found the scale, the drugs, and everything in his bag.
Okay.
I believe the gun might have been in there as well, but
All right.
it was a small bag as far as I understand.
And how long was this employee employed, employee number one, at the convenience store?
I do not know. I do not know. My guess would be, probably on the order of 6 months or something like that.
And sir, Mr.
Obviously, I don't think I mentioned he's no longer employed. And-
I want to assume, and I hope
Right.
that you use your judgment
And
to make
also
sure he's
employee
been
number
arrested,
2
I
and
assume.
employee number 3 are no longer employed either.
I assume employee number one was arrested on the spot
Yes, he was.
and is no longer employed with you, Mr. Portistan? Okay. And have you observed anything since you've started your weekly visits in terms of any issues with any employees? And have you done anything in terms of remediation?
Everything's back to normal.
Everything's back to normal?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. And have you hired any other felons who are working there? Do you have any rules about hiring felons to work at your convenience store?
There is a company that's we usually do the employee hires from those, and I believe some of them they have kind of records that
Okay.
they used to, and that's what we are trying to help some people to give them the second chance to bring them. But these are all background check, and they check with their officers, and yeah, they working in the car wash, but they're working very well. We have never had problem with those people.
Well, hopefully with your future oversight and increased presence,
Yes.
this will never be an issue again, because I'm not sure I'd be comfortable giving you some leeway forward going after
Now
something
it's
this
more
serious.
exactly.
Thank you so much. I have no further questions.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Brown. Commissioner Cohen?
Thank you. Very briefly, I don't even need a response to what I'm about to say. Remediation doesn't excuse negligence. You're negligent. You violated the Game Control Act. There's a whole lot of things that I've heard today that mitigate towards us, or towards at least me, voting in favor of this $10,000 settlement. But likewise, there's a whole lot of things out there that could go easily the other way. 2 times a month, I myself don't think that's enough. By the way, do you have remote surveillance of the store? You can tune in. Okay, are you doing that from your home?
Yes.
Okay. Just listen to your attorney. All this, a lot of this could have been avoided. I'm not saying everything, but again, remediation does not excuse negligence in the area, and clearly you were negligent.
All right, very good. All right, any other questions?
I just had a quick follow-up.
Commissioner Solis Rainey?
Mr. Howard, you indicated that you had installed a blue light. Does the light have a camera on that same pole?
Those do, and I don't know if it's been installed. We asked Metro to do it. We had obviously no control over them, but
Is that something that you pay for? Is that a service
no,
Metro offers?
no. They just have a limited number of them. And the issue when we had the hearing before the county was they couldn't say yes positively because they didn't know where they were location wise. So I know they move around, because down the street from my office, there was one in that shopping center parking lot for a couple of months, and it's no longer there. So I don't know how long they leave them in place, but we basically requested of them to put one there.
Okay, so it was never installed,
I think they put one there for a period of time, but I can't attest to the fact of whether or not it's still there.
but you do have other surveillance, is my
Oh,
understanding?
yes, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. We have
Our
normal
own-
surveillance and we have an armed guard patrolling from 6 PM to 6 AM.
Does the manager that you hired that acts as the key employee, does that manager hire for both the convenience store and also the car wash?
Yeah, I think so. He will consult with the guy who's managing the car wash, but I think it's, being honest, I think it's difficult to get car wash employees now as it is for many other people.
Right.
It's a lower paying job and it's not all that steady, but
No, and I appreciate that your explanation that you do hire some people with convictions under second chance programs. I don't have a problem with that as long as that's occurring only in the car wash and not in the convenience store.
that's correct. That's correct.
I mean, I think it's commendable and the individuals deserve an opportunity
Well, the
to.
guy who's managing the car wash had a drug issue from years past and spent 12 years in federal prison. So he has let's just say, a very strong conviction about second chances and staying out of trouble, et cetera, et cetera. So,
And again, as long as that's being monitored and handled on the car wash side and not coming inside, if you will, into the store, I don't have a problem with that. I don't have anything further to add. Again, I initially looked at it and thought this was extremely low. I mean, I thought more, definitely more stringent consequences should have been in place, especially one of the factors that is listed in 7240 is whether the licensee knew or should have known that what they were doing was what was happening was a violation. And I accept your explanation that he wouldn't have known about the drugs and the gun, that kind of thing. But he certainly knew the condition on his license with respect to the key employee. And I think the AG's basically giving you a favor on calling that an administrative oversight, because I think that's something that it's an affirmative duty that you had and that you should have upheld. But if the board is comfortable moving forward with recommending the stipulation, then I would be willing to accept it. I don't have anything further.
All right, very good. I don't think there's any other further comment. I could support a motion to follow the stipulation and the amount stated for all the reasons that have been placed on the record. I think there's some good lawyering here done, pointing out the facts in this case. This is this man's first go around. Maybe this will open his eyes. Maybe he'll seek counsel more repeatedly if he needs an answer so he doesn't get astray. So if somebody is prepared to make a motion to grant the stipulation and settlement, I'd be able to support it.
Yes, Chair, I'm prepared. I propose that we approve the stipulation for settlement in order that was executed by the board on June 11th, 2021, and for authorization for you to execute the order to the extent it's approved by the commission today.
Very good. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. I call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No opposition. Okay. Congratulations. You got a good chance. You got another chance. Please don't come back.
Sure.
Unless you got a new location.
Sure.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, John.
All right.
Thank you, Commissioners.
All right. Thank you. Okay. What's next? Last of the day. We saved the best for last, right, Mr. Giordano?
Next, for your consideration, you have a petition for adoption of amendments to regulations pursuant to NRS 463.1451D as filed by McDonald Toronto to amend NGC Regulation 5.225.
All right. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chairman Moran, Commissioners, Madam Secretary. For the record, I'm Greg Giordano, the law firm McDonald Toronto. It's good to see you all actually in person. It's been a really long time and good to see you all. I'm appearing here today on behalf of our client, Global Payments Gaming Services, Inc., a cash access and wagering service provider registered board, in support of our petition to amend Regulation 5.225, subsection 1D as in David. With me here today to my right is our client's president, Chris Justice. As stated in our petition, the purpose of these proposed amendments is to accommodate some new technology by clarifying that the term wagering account, as currently defined in Regulation 5.225, subsection 1D, does not include certain associated equipment app, kiosk operations, and electronic ledgers used in connection therewith, that solely record and track wagering vouchers whose validity and value are determined, monitored, and retained by a gaming licensee's cashless wagering system, and/or communicate with a licensee's cashless wagering system to facilitate a patron's use and redemption of stored and tracked wagering vouchers, commonly known as Tito tickets. In layman's terms, what we're trying to do here today is remedy here is trying to fit a square peg represented by some new technology into a round hole represented by current gaming regulatory requirements. In preparing and filing this petition and the proposed amendments, we have worked closely with Board Member Phil Katsaros and with Senior Deputy Attorney General Ed McGow, and believe that the Board Member Phil Katsaros is supportive of our petition and of the Commission adopting the proposed amendments. Our proposed amendments to the Regulation 5.225 Section 1D are set forth in the Exhibit A that was filed with our petition. It also should be noted, however, that the proposed amendments to Regulation 5.225 subsection 1D1 and subsection 2 Roman numeral 1, as set forth in Exhibit A, are intended to reformat these subsections to conform them with the current drafting standards used by the Commission and have been requested by the Gaming Division of the Nevada Office of the Attorney General to be included as part of our petition and proposed amendments. With that, we'd be happy to answer any questions you have concerning our petition at this time.
All right, very good. I had some meetings with Mr. McGaw, and I had conversations with Board Member Katsaros at length. I feel very comfortable with this. They in fact enlightened me on some of this. I just wanted to ask you two things on the record, and hopefully we'll accept this and then send it on to the a board to workshop it in the manner in which they feel that they'd like to do. That would be my hope, and bring it back in August after everybody in the industry has an opportunity to step up on it and see where they're at. And that's how we like to do things. And I think we'd like to do it like that here. My only two questions is tell me briefly, and very briefly, there's no risk to the hotel in the amendment changes that you've done, correct?
Absolutely not. This is basically, it's basically taking the paper Tito ticket and turning it into an electronic e-ticket. That's all it's doing. There's not affecting, not even, it's just like communicating between the paper ticket and the electronic ticket. It has nothing to do with the cashless wagering system or the electronic ledgers that the casino maintains that are controlled by the board under regulations because of the concerns with the access to those accounts and so forth. It's really basically very simply trying to turn a paper ticket into an e-ticket, electronic ticket for convenience sake of the patron.
Very good. And then the protections are there already. And to do this, it's duplicitous if we don't do it. So we have protections there. The second question is on the other side, consumer protection. And I understand that's where the smartphone comes in and storage and things that continue to make sure and tell me on the record that we're not going to have any consumer problems there.
Let me address that, Mr. Justice, to address that question.
Sure.
Good.
Yeah,
He's
just
more
briefly.
knowledgeable of the product and the technology.
Yeah, I didn't
than
want to
am.
get too far into it today, but I would like to have that on the record before we decide what we're going to do with this.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for giving us a moment of your time to talk about this. So this kinds of technology actually adds incremental security to what is there today. So as we digitize effectively the paper today, the barcode is in plain view, easily copied, easily duplicated, easily used by anyone. As the vouchers are actually created in an electronic format, everything is encrypted using bank grade security. So the ability for, or we're really adding a lot more increased security to the entire solution, what's there today.
Okay, very good. And one last thing, not to you, but before we bring it up to the commission for any questions, I wanted to make sure with the Deputy Attorney General, everything is good in this language. You feel comfortable with it?
Thank you, Chair Moran. The board is neutral on it at this stage because we haven't had input from other industries, but as far as we know, we work well with them on language. And we are comfortable with the form and what it covers at this stage, but reserve the right based on workshops to tinker with it or adjust it accordingly. But yes, we're good with the format and the language.
Very good. Thank you. A last question to Board Member Casaros. You're comfortable with it, and if the board, if the commission decided to accept and refer to the board and workshop it in a manner and bring it back in August, is all that good with you?
Yes, Chair Moran, thank you for that. Appreciate it. Mr. McGaw just said it perfectly. It's right now to release it, I believe, in the form that it's in. Always open to suggestions. That's part of the process that we have here, right? So that the public, industry at large can comment on it and perhaps critique is needed. And we are always open to adjusting. But frankly, the language as it is right now is, I think, perfectly fine to release and so that we could solicit feedback.
All right, thank you very much. I'll bring it back to the commission. Do any of the commissioners have any further questions or comments? And do we have a motion?
Yeah, just one comment. It makes sense what you're doing perfectly. I know Chief Barbie's out there, and I'm sure this has been vetted by you, and you're also in agreement with Member Katsaros. I mean, with Mr. McGaw.
Good afternoon, Commissioner Jim Barbie for the record. Yes, I'm in agreement that we have looked at the language, we formatted appropriately, as was mentioned, and do agree with Mr. Katsaros that it's in a form that can be presented to the public, and then we can take public comment from there and then take the input from our workshops and massage it if needed.
Very good, thank you. It's good to see you, Chief. Always. All right, thank you.
Unless my fellow colleagues have any comments, I'm prepared for a motion.
All right, go ahead.
I would move to accept the petition as filed by McDonald Carano dated as of May 14, 2021 to amend NGC Regulation 5.225 as a regulation project to request the Gaming Control Board hold a workshop to gather further information from all interested parties related to the proposed amendments, then bring it back to the commission for final approval.
Okay, very good. We have a motion. Discussion on the motion.
Just for security of record, it's 5.225 subsection 1. Subsection.
Very good. All right, well, we have a motion. I don't see any comment on the motion. Are we ready to take a vote? Looks like we are. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, unanimously.
Thank you all very much.
Yeah, nice job on bringing that to us. You know, that's a good illustration of when this petition process works. It really is effective. So thank you. All right.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. I guess next item, we only have two fast ones, right?
Yes, the next item is the administrative reports. We start with Board Chairman.
Good afternoon, Chair and Commission. This is Bryn Gibson for the record, meeting on July 7th. It's a one-day meeting, Carson City. 9 o'clock is the non-restricted, 1 o'clock restricted. So it should not be an overly long meeting. Thank you.
Beautiful. Looking forward to that. In fact, just on my comment portion, I'm really happy that we're going to be able to get up north with the commission this time for July 22nd. We're looking forward to going up there and spending some time. It's way overdue. And I always love going up north and seeing the people up there in those offices and having a hearing there. And I think all my fellow commissioners are going to join me in that and join me up there, and it'll be fun. So having said that, I don't have anything else on this portion. I guess we can do the last part, right? Public comment?
Public comment. This item is placed on the agenda to give the public an opportunity to comment on gaming related matters.
Don't see anybody. All right, we'll be in adjournment then. This meeting is over with. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.